The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we are webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. And it's Tuesday. We are at the last day of July. Now, why is that significant? Well, there's a whole lot of reasons why in our lives, right? But I want to remind you that today is the last day in this grant phase for applying for a grant from Autism Care and Treatment Today. So if you want a grant for something for your child, this is an organization that gives grants for things that people ask for. So you have to ask for, what is it you want? What's on your list? Is it an iPad? Is it a device so that you can track your child because they're an eloper? Is it a fence? Is it diagnostic, to go and get a diagnosis? Medical bills? What is on your list of things that you need help with? Please apply for a grant today. I'm going to bring it up a couple of times today so that if people tune in at different times, but I don't want you to forget. I know it's so easy to say that there's nobody out there who's helping and you're all alone and there's nothing you can do, right? It feels like that on a regular basis, but I want you to know that it does not have to feel like that. That isn't quite the truth. It's what it feels like, but it isn't quite the truth. We're here for you and we try to hook you up with information to help you because you're not alone. That's the one thing I can guarantee you. You are not alone on this journey. I know it feels that way. As a parent of a child on the autism spectrum, man, the days when I just felt like I was alone on the earth. Many, but it was what it felt like. It wasn't the whole truth. And I get to be in a position now where I can help you to see all the people who are standing behind you and working behind the scenes trying to help you. There are many of them. Hey, we're going to be with you for the next 3 hours talking about topics having to do with autism and how we can be the most effective, most efficient members of a team working with a child on the autism spectrum. Whether you're a parent, a teacher, a practitioner, hopefully we have something for you to help you to be more efficient, more effective, because we all want to see progress, right? All of our kids are going to make progress if we use the right tools at the right time. And that's one of the reasons why we talk about ABA as much as we do, because ABA is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. By the way, it's effective for all of our kids. Wherever your child is on this big spectrum, right? You could have a child who is 35, very profoundly affected with autism. You could have a child who's 3, profoundly affected with autism. You could have a child who's 3, who's mildly affected, or an 18-year-old who's mildly affected. And there's every possible configuration in between all of those things, right? But what we do know and what science has shown us is that if we use the principles of ABA, we are going to see progress. All of our kids are going to develop and end up in a different place, right? Their potentials are all different, but I don't know what your child's potential is. Do you? You may know better than anybody else, but I'll bet you that your child will surprise you. Your child will surprise you. That's certainly been my experience. I mentioned we're going to be talking about ABA, but I want to remind you that I am an autism mom, not an autism expert. right? I am not an AB expert. I am not a behavior analyst. I'm not a board certified behavior analyst for sure. And I am somebody who, like you, is at the table trying to learn. And my purpose here is to connect you with the information that you want. So think of me as the conduit, right? I'm the switchboard, but I'm not the person on the other end of the phone, right? I want to hook you up with the information that you need, because you know why? People hooked me up with information. And Holly Robinson Pete was here the other day, and we so enjoyed having her on. And she said, you know, I wish we'd had this show, Autism Live, when my son was diagnosed. And I said to her, quite frankly, you know what? I wish we'd had it when my son was diagnosed. But I want to be here for you and hook you up. Because we all know how important information is on this journey, and how important it is to feel like you're not going it alone. Okay, so to that end, how can you tell us what you need? How can you be in contact with us so that you can say, hey, this is what I need more information about, Shannon, so work that up, would you? And I'll be glad to. Because the one thing I always say is that, you know, I gave up mind reading to be an autism mom. I just, you know, my plate was full. I had other things, so the mind reading had to go. So don't expect me to know what you need, right? You got to tell me. You got to tell me. Now, there's lots of different ways that you can talk to us and to the experts that we bring on the show and the other parents that we bring on the show, because we're going to have some really interesting interviews later on today. How can you be involved? How can you be a part of the conversation? Well, if you're watching us right now on autism-live.com, then you will see that it says either live or rebroadcast across the top of your screen. If it says live, then you know that in fact you are watching us live. There is a question box there, and you can type into it, hit enter, and it magically appears right here before me, and we can be having a conversation, and I can ferry your questions to the appropriate people. If you're watching, and by the way, you don't have to put a credit card in, you don't have to log in, you just type away. If you're watching us and it says rebroadcast, or you're watching in one of the other ways that there are available to watch us, then there are many ways that you can get in touch with us that involves slight delayed gratification, right? But they're still there. So on the screen there, you can see our email address. We love it when you guys email us. What we do is get back to you as soon as we can and hook you up with either links or names of organizations, whatever it is, to help you to find the answer to your question. Or in some cases, we just forward your question to an expert in the field and have them respond to you. So, and we do, when appropriate, cover your questions on the show. I know many of you have been writing in and saying you'd like to be on the show. We love that. And I've been responding back to you, and we're finding time to have you guys on the show to talk about the things that you want to talk about. We really appreciate that. If you are in a big hurry and you want to be on the show, well, you can, because you can phone in right now to the studio and we can be having a conversation on the phone. Oops, I'm dropping all kinds of things here. So, whoopsie woo. Hang on. I've lost my feed here. We're live. Things happen. I got to plug back in. Okay. So you can phone into the show, or if we're not live, you can phone and leave a message and we'll have somebody get back to you. There are people, if you're shy but you like to talk on the phone and don't want to be on the show, there are people standing by to take your calls and help you to find the information that you need. Again, all free. By the way, you can Skype in. We're going to be Skyping later on today with two guests. Isn't that fun? And we'll talk a little bit more about who they are and why they're going to be here on the show in just a little while. But you can Skype into the show. We're going to be Skyping internationally, not today, but in the coming weeks. And we have already Skyped internationally, so don't be shy. If you are somewhere else in the world, on the other side of the world, that's exciting to me to be able to talk to you. I'd love to hear, and even if you want to, sometimes you guys will write in and tell me what time it is where you're watching. I don't know why. I find that really exciting. That's just so fun to me. You know, not long ago, I had to speak at a conference in South Africa. What a great opportunity. And I did it from my living room, which was so fun. They had hooked me up with a feed on Skype, and they were having a conference in South Africa, and I got to be, you know, in contact and talk with them. And it was really funny to me because I think I'm the only one who gets excited about the time change. And they were there. It was two different different days of the conference that I spoke in 2 different cities from my living room. I did not go to South Africa. My child wants to go to South Africa so badly, but we will at some point. But I'm not the best on planes, right? So I love to travel. If you could just teleport me there, it would all be good. In any case, it was just after midnight my time, and at one point they asked me, they said, so what time is it where you are? And I think it was just after 8 or 9 in the morning where they were, and I said, yeah, it's midnight. And the big reaction from everybody, it was really fun, and I thought, okay, I'm not the only person who just thinks that's just, I don't know, thrilling and exciting time change. Explain it to me. I can't even explain it to myself. In any case, whatever time it is where you are, you can Skype in with us and tell us what time it is. Very fun thing. All right, there are other ways that you can get a hold of us too, because we're on Facebook, and more of you are participating on our new Facebook page, which is Autism Live on Facebook, and we really love that. So if you like us while you're there, that's an extra bonus. We really enjoy it. And by the way, there's a new feature on the Facebook page that if you want to, we don't ask for your email address and all that information ever, but if you'd like to get our new newsletter that's going to be starting in the month of August, all you have to do is sign up and sign in and give us your email address, and we will send you the new newsletter that I personally am working on even as we speak. Well, maybe not right now, but you know what I mean. It's on my plate at the moment. So while you're there on Facebook, if you would like the newsletter, and it's going to be chock full of information and guests about who's coming up, and information about where you can get information, right? We want to hook you up. So take a look at that. And you can also, by the way, tweet with us. I just think that's a funny word, tweet. But I'm a little silly today. I don't know what that's about. Overtired, right? But we encourage you to tweet with us. I always admit I am new to the Twitter thing. I'm working on getting better at it. And when you guys interact with us, that's what helps me and gets me excited about it. I don't completely get it yet, but I'm getting there. I'm not tied to my Twitter yet. I know a lot of people that everything is about what's happening on Twitter, and they're looking at it constantly, and I'm working on that. So, but we do appreciate when you guys tweet with us. I mentioned that there are other ways to watch us, that you can be watching us here on autism-live.com, and I hope that's a really gratifying, yes, I put lipstick on, but that doesn't mean that my lips are working yet. Gratifying way to watch Autism Live, because you can interact live. And by the way, the rest of the day, we just replay the most recent episode. So wherever you are, whenever you are, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, if you come to Autism-Live, you are going to see something. We have some sort of programming that's here. But a lot of you wrote in and said, hey, I want to be able to go back right now and watch last Thursday's episode, and I need to be able to pause it and rewind it and fast forward, all of which things that you can't do on Autism-Live. So we heard you and said, that's a great idea. Of course you need to be able to do that. How can we do that for you? So we've got a couple of different choices. You can be watching us on blip.tv, and this is wonderful because you can pause, rewind, search a topic, go back and watch a specific date, all of those different ways. And you can also interact with us via blip.tv. You can also do that on our YouTube channel. Now, what I love about the YouTube channel is that it features some of the shorter clips, so that if you want to go back and see just the interview with Holly Robinson Pete, you can. Or if you want to go back and see just the interviews that we've done with Dr. Jonathan Tarbox, you can. All of that is available to you on our YouTube channel, and we appreciate your reviews and comments on YouTube as well. And we are available as a free download on iTunes. And in fact, all of the places where you can find us, the information is available to you for free. We're really committed to that, and I think that's a wonderful thing. So check us out on iTunes. Again, you can download them, keep your own library, so that if you want to be watching something over and over and over again, or you've got a child care worker who's working with your child and you want to share that clip with them, you can. You can do all of those different things. And we're also available to you on Ustream, just another way that we are available to you. So all of that is wonderful. We hope that you will participate in whatever way is best for you. And by the way, if none of these things is convenient for you and there's another way that you are aware of that's more convenient for you, would you do me a favor and let us know? We love your interaction. Tell us what's working for you, what isn't working for you, what you wish you could see more of, whatever it is. We love talking to you. I sit in this room by myself with Emily in my ear. Anytime somebody will talk to me, it's very exciting for me. Don't leave me sitting in the studio by myself, please. Okay, we like to start every morning with something that we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is the time of day when we take on those words, phrases, and anagrams that really tear our tickets, right? This is the kind of stuff that people say to us when we ask them for help with our child and we go, what? I'm sorry, I had no idea what you just said to me. Right? So we're trying to make friends with the jargon, trying to figure out what in the hey nani nani these experts are talking about so we can apply it to our children. I know, who wound me up? I don't do caffeine. So there must be silly pills in the water this morning because I'm very silly this morning. That's okay. If we can't laugh sometimes, what do we have left, right? Okay, our jargon term for the day is antecedent. Now, this is something that we talk about a lot because it's important whenever we're looking to change a behavior. We're going to look at it through a three-term contingent. So what is the antecedent? Our actual definition is anything that occurs or is present immediately before the behavior of interest. All right, not the worst actual definition, but can we boil it down to something that's really going to help us, which is what happened before? So the child's engaging in a behavior that is troublesome, and it's challenging, and it's preventing the child from being able to learn. We want to look at that behavior through that three-term contingent that I was talking about, which a really easy way to remember it is the ABC of the behavior. All behaviors have an ABC. You have ABCs to your behavior, I have ABCs to my behavior, and our kids, whether they're on the spectrum or not, have an ABC to their behavior. So what's the A, the B, and the C? The A is the antecedent. Something happened, and then this behavior happened. So what was it? What was the thing that triggered the behavior? Then we want to look at the actual behavior. What was it? And then for every behavior, there is a consequence, right? So this is the A, antecedent, B, behavior, C, consequence. We don't have a whole lot of control over the behavior, do we? We just really don't. But we have a lot of control over antecedents, and we have a lot of control over consequences. Sometimes, depending on the behavior and what the function of the behavior is, an antecedent modification can just nip it in the bud. Nip it in the bud and that behavior goes away. How fantabulous would that be, right? Sometimes we need to manipulate the consequence, and sometimes we need to be able to manipulate both. But knowing what the antecedent is and thinking it through and thinking to yourself, okay, what happened before? What was the moment before this behavior happened? Did somebody take something away from the child? Was the child asked to do something that they didn't want to do? What happened? What changed that the behavior happened? Really effective once we know what the antecedent is. Okay. We always have a question of the day. The question of the day is meant to get you, there it is. I messed up my cue. Question of the day is meant to get you thinking, participating, and we really appreciate when you guys participate on Facebook and answer the question of the day. So today's question is, what are you grateful for? What are you grateful for? I tell you, there's so many things in my grateful column right now. One of the things I'm grateful for is to have the opportunity to be here on your behalf, because I learn when I'm here. You guys teach me so much. I learn when you guys ask questions, and that makes me a better parent. And anything that makes me a better parent, I'm really grateful for. And so also under that column, I'm really grateful for all the people that I work with, because they're so passionate. They're so passionate about helping our kids. I said to you that, so much of the time early after my son was diagnosed with autism, he was diagnosed at the age of 2.5. He started ABA therapy at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders at the age of 3. And so much of the first year after he was diagnosed, I felt like I was on the moon by myself, alone. And I realized after a period of time that I wasn't, and I connected with other parents, and we did a lot of things that were right because people steered us in the right direction. We made some mistakes along the way, but I'm so grateful for those parents who pointed us in the right direction, because I don't know that we would have done ABA had it not been for parents telling us what a difference it made in their child's lives. And so I'm so grateful to them. And then, of course, coming to the Center for Autism and Related Disorders CARD, as we like to call it, I was exposed to a bunch of people who made it their business to help my child. And we got our child back. There are still some things that he struggles with, but we got our child back. How could you not be grateful for that? And then, to be able to work here now and see, I said once I started working here, it was like going, if you've ever been to Disneyland, there's a whole city underneath Disneyland where they make everything work. And I said, coming to work here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders in the same building, I feel like I got to go underground at Disneyland and see how everything works. And it's so humbling to me on a daily basis to be around these people and to see how hard they are working to help our children. And then recently we went to the ABAI conference, ABA International. And we'll show you some interviews later on from that. And I said, man, it's like seeing that on steroids, to see all of these people that are trying so hard to help our children. It's humbling. It's absolutely humbling, but I can't tell you how grateful I am for it, because I know what it means for my child. And you know what else I know? I know what it means for your child too. It may not have trickled down to you yet, and if it hasn't, I got to tell you, there's so many people who are working for it to trickle down to you as soon as possible. And you can help. Tell us, where you are, what you need, and I'll try to help you to connect you with these people that are closest to you. But it's coming. If it hasn't gotten there yet, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, but it's coming, and you can have access to it today. You really can, because you're here with us. And I'm grateful for that, because I know 2 years ago, I couldn't have sat here and said that to anybody. That would have been a lie. There would have been some people that were in different places in the world that I would have said, oh my gosh, you need to move, because you can't get what we have where you are. That's not really the truth anymore. And that's a message I want to spread. There's hope, there's help, and it's available now. And if you don't know where the hope and the help is, I'm so glad you're here, and write in and tell us where you are, and I'm going to tell you how you can plug into it. And I'm grateful that I can. That is huge to me, that I have the ability to help you plug in. Answer to a prayer. Okay. So that's our question of the day. I want to know what you're grateful for, though. And of course, I can't leave this without saying I'm so grateful for my child and my husband. Oh, I have the best boys. My boys, they are the most awesome. My little familia is something that I'm grateful for every day. And my larger familia, which includes you, I'm also grateful for. So tell us what you're grateful for, though. We also always have a topic of the day, which is now more of a topic of the week. And this week, it is, of course, ABA for beginners. We're going back to basics, taking a look at it and seeing, because we could all use that. Whether you've been on this journey for 12 years, 25 years, 2 weeks, we can all benefit from ABA for beginners, even if we just apply it to ourselves. But if we apply it to ourselves and our relationships and our children, life gets better. I can tell you that that is my experience, and so many other parents. Life gets better. And that's a great thing to be able to promise. Okay, to that end, all the things that we have to talk about today, we got a lot to go over today and a lot that's happening tomorrow. But this morning, see, I got all verklempt, as I do. We are going to go over a motor tip in just a little while. We are going to have a myth of the day. We have a cognition tip for you today, and we have a couple of interviews today. We're going to be talking to 2 different women via Skype. The first one that we're going to be talking to at around 10:20 this morning, is Lisa DeSherlia. I hope I'm saying her name properly. She is going to be talking with us. She has started a petition on change.org, which we're going to be showing to you and inviting you to participate in, about asking here in the United States our legislators to allow funding for adults on the autism spectrum and how important that is. So Lisa is going to be here. She's a parent and she's started this petition, and we will be talking with her at around 10:20. And then at around 10:45, we're going to be joined by Caroline McGraw. And she is a sibling, an adult sibling of a young man on the spectrum, and she is a writer and someone who is very passionate about telling people's stories. She writes for Autism After 16. So we kind of had this theme today about what happens after somebody, let's face it, there's not enough services for our little children, right? We know how important it is for little children to get those services, and there's not enough yet, but there is wildly more available for small children than there is for teenagers, and there is wildly more available for teenagers than there is for adults. And when we stop and consider that every single child with autism is at some point going to grow up and be an adult, it puts a shiver down your spine. 1 in 88, 1 in 54 boys. Yeah, we need some services for adults, and we need them now. In fact, we need them 3 weeks ago. So both of these women are people who are looking at things happening after the age of 16 and saying, more needs to be done. So we're really going to be excited to talk to both of them. That's happening in the next hour. But as I said, we're going to do some motor tip. We got our healthy eating tip this morning. I know. There are some of you who love that segment, and there are some of you who are just hating on me for the healthy eating segment. That's okay. Hate me for it. Hate me for it. Look, I eat healthily in terms of, and my household, well, I won't go that far because I won't say that my husband is allergic to vegetables, he thinks. But please know, take a look at me. Obviously, I am not the skinny mini that has this all figured out. But I will tell you that my child eats really well, and that I know how important that was for our journey. Because if our kids aren't healthy, if our kids aren't well, we can do all the work under the sun, and we can provide all the ABA under the sun, and we can figure out the financial end of it, and we still won't see as much progress as if our child is healthy. Right? We got to get our kids healthy, and then we have to find the way to teach them. So I just want to remind you that having the child be healthy is a big part of this, and having them eat healthily is, of course, I don't think it matters whether you have a child on the spectrum or not. It's something we all want, right? But how do you get a child on the spectrum to eat healthily? That's the rub, right? Well, we're going to talk a little bit about that coming up, not in the next segment, but the one after. We're going to take a break and come back with a motor tip, so stick with us. Currently, in the United States, 1 in 88 children is affected by autism. 1 in 88 means something different when your child is the one. Recovery is possible. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism Live, an online show about autism broadcast by CARD, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I'm also the mother of a child with autism, my beautiful son, Jem. You know our old joke, guess what?
Chicken butt.
Chicken butt. So we're going to take the chickens. But things weren't always so easy. I remember when Jem was first diagnosed with autism. I used to lay awake at night in bed and pray for someone or something that could help us to get our child back. My prayers were answered by Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet and the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD treats autism and other related disorders using the principles of ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, which is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. It is also recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the U.S. Surgeon General. About a year after we started treatment with CARD, we were able to see tremendous improvement, and we got our child back.
What grade are you in?
Second.
You are a smart cookie, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like school?
Yeah.
Do you have any good friends?
Yeah, Oscar.
Oscar is your best friend?
Yeah.
And my child is just one of thousands to benefit from CARD ABA therapy. Across the nation and around the world, children are making amazing progress and being given the keys to unlock their full potential.
We are extremely grateful for the amazing job CARD has done in helping our daughter. Our daughter today, just in 4 months, I think is a totally different child than when she started with CARD. I kind of see it as, it seems like her brain in a way was asleep, and now that we've gotten so many services, we've seen her wake up.
Did you have some glasses?
Recovery is possible if you take the right steps, if you're willing to put in all the hard work. And 7.5 years, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's worth every little bit, and CARD's been there with us every step of the way.
I have 2 children with autism. I can't imagine a day without CARD or the therapists. They've been so instrumental in helping us with our kids and shaping their lives and helping us help them.
Thank you, Christina Big Alex.
Thank you, Jackie and Mariana.
We've tried other things before ABA, but the most beneficial thing has been ABA services, and I'd be the first person to tell any newly diagnosed family that you have to contact an ABA provider, and if you're lucky enough to have CARD, you're very blessed.
Recovery from autism is absolutely a possibility. We've been recovering children for over 20 years. It's just a matter of identifying the child's medical needs, understanding the child's sensory issues, and then teaching the child all of the skills they need in order to function normally.
We know there's hope for autism. Autism is treatable, and recovery from autism is possible.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. You know, we don't spend enough time, if you just watched that clip and you saw at the end Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet, and we talk about CARD all the time, and I don't talk enough about Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet because, well, and then I'm going to get emotional. You know how you have heroes? Oh, yeah. There are some people, and you know, it's a very big trend right now with all the superheroes, right? There's a Batman movie, there's a Spider-Man movie, there's, you know, the Fantastic Four or whatever that is, the Avengers, I don't know. All those different things. And I think, you know, we're at a time in our lives where the economy is, and there's some things going on in the world, and I think we all need some heroes, and I think it's really important that we have these fantastic outlets, these people who, you know, are fictitious, that can leap tall buildings in a single bound. But I think it's also important in life to acknowledge that there are heroes that are right here on this planet, and I got to tell you, quite honestly, one of those heroes. And if you have not yet been fortunate enough in your life to have had the opportunity to hear her speak or to directly feel the benefit of what she has devoted her life works to, let me just tell you that change your circumstances. And you can right now, because if you go online, you can see, put her name in, Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet, and she speaks around the world, and you can find videos. There's a CARD YouTube site that you can go to. They have their own channel, and you can watch endless hours for free of Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet speaking. But when I tell you that I had not met her. My son had been having therapy here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, and I'd certainly heard a lot about her. I'd seen her on Dr. Phil. I'd read books that had her in them, parents who talked about how great their children were doing, and because, you know, they had had the opportunity to meet Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet. So she was sort of this mythical figure in the distance, but I'd never met her. But I was reaping the benefits of all her work, and I knew that I was. But still, you know, I'm a cynical person. Until I've met someone, I go, oh, okay, you know, well, how great can they possibly be? And then I met her. And She spoke, and she spoke so eloquently and so passionately, and I sat there and said, okay, this woman is the real deal. This woman is the real deal. And how privileged, you want to talk about being grateful, how privileged I was to feel, to know that she was working on the same team that I was. And not only that, that she was somebody who was going to change the game. And she has. When I said to you guys earlier that wherever you are, I know that 2 years ago, I couldn't have said this, but I can say to you today, you have access. You do have access. It was almost 2 years ago, it will be 2 years this fall, I can't believe how much time has passed and how much has changed since then, that I was invited to come to hear Dr. Grampiche speak, and she was unveiling skills in CARDI learning for the first time to anyone. And I don't know how I got to be so lucky to be a part of that small group of people in that room. But I was. And I'm always going to be grateful for that. And I always talk about the fact that I sat there. She spoke for about 3.5, 4 hours, and it was an open forum where we could talk to her. And I went home and I shook for 2 hours. I left this building and had to stop a block and a half down because I couldn't drive. And I called my husband and I said, I'm so excited. I have to come home and I have to speak to you. And I want you to clear the decks because we got to talk because everything is about to change. It was so amazing to me because I had had the opportunity to be around parents and to see what had happened in my home with my child as a result of ABA. And let me just tell you how grateful I was. But there was always that through line of guilt and thinking about what if I didn't live here, and that there's a mom somewhere in some other part of the world who does not, she has a child too that she loves every bit as much as I know, every bit as much as I love my child, and the sun rises and sets in her child, and she's losing her child in inches the way I was losing my child in inches. But I got to be lucky. I got to have the benefit of the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, and not everyone does. And when I tell you that, like, it didn't stop me from keeping on for my son, but there was always that thing in the back of my head about how on earth are we going to get this available for every child? And I couldn't even imagine. I couldn't even imagine. But then I went and heard Dr. Grampiche talk, and she unveiled skills in CARDI learning, and I thought my head was going to explode. Seriously. I looked at it and I said, well, this is how they're going to make it possible so that somebody on, a safari in Zimbabwe is going to be able to have access to the same lessons and the same materials that we had access to. It's a wonderful thing, and it is completely from Dr. Dorian Grampiche that I sat in this meeting and I heard people say, there are reasons why you shouldn't let this information out. I was stunned, but I heard Dr. Dorian Grampiche saying, oh no, we know we have answers here, and we need to make sure that the world has access. We have to. And in that moment, I was like, well, I will follow you anywhere. Because thank goodness that someone who is as smart as she is and as good as she is the one who had this information. That's all I can tell you. So she is, without a doubt, a hero to me. And if you have the opportunity today, go to the CARD channel and watch some videos with her. You'll see what I'm talking about. She is an amazing, amazing woman. Okay, I don't want to get any more messy. I got makeup halfway down my face. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about motor skills and how important it is that we work. There's 4 different areas that we talk about with motor skills, right? We talk about the gross motor, the big muscle stuff. We talk about fine motor, the really, hand and finger skills, visual motor for a child to be able to track and use the muscles around their eyes to be able to focus so that they can see things and not have binocular vision, and to use their eyes in conjunction with everything else going on sensory-wise to be able to perceive things visually, right? And then, of course, there's oral motor, which we talked a little bit about yesterday, how important it is, and we'll see this again when we're watching today's A-word episode, that you know, if a child's having trouble acquiring language and they start to, but the musculature is not going to be caught up, right? So their speech is going to be difficult to understand at best, right? We need to help them, because what we don't want is for them to be trying to use the language. They say something and they don't get a reaction from it because nobody can understand them. So it's not reinforcing enough and they don't try as hard. So we want to work on those oral motor skills. But it's a time of year when our kids are getting ready to go back to school. So I wanted to take a minute to talk a little bit about the tripod grasp that, excuse me, because everything's running. The tripod grasp that our children need to be able to do as they develop finger-wise, so that they can hold a pencil properly. We've all seen children who hold a pencil like this and they're not going to be able to have the efficiency that they would if they don't have that tripod grasp. And how do we get from a child who is drawing with a crayon and coloring this way to being able to do the tripod grasp? There's a lot of different things, and we want to start with a pincer grasp, right? That's when we've all had this experience where you take the O cereals, you know, whether it's Cheerios or something else, that you put on the high chair tray and encourage your child to be able to pick them up one at a time to eat them, or raisins if that's something that's more reinforcing for the child, so that we're encouraging that pincer grasp, right? That's going to be helpful to get to the tripod grasp. But one of the things that we can do to get to a tripod grasp, we want to make coloring reinforcing to the child. And don't forget that sometimes coloring is not going to be reinforcing. So we're going to pair other things so that when they do color, it's reinforcing, right? And in the beginning, you can get the big crayons and allow them to color to get crayons and coloring to be reinforcing. But once crayons and coloring are reinforcing, and you know, they have every kind of crayon now. They have them in different shapes. Like if your kid is into Legos, you can get crayons that are Lego shaped. They have everything under the sun. They have them with glitter. They have practically have them so that they change colors. You can get markers that absolutely change colors. Amazing. So you can find something that's hopefully more reinforcing and then pair it with other things to make it reinforcing. But once coloring and being able to put color on a page is reinforcing, how we're going to get to this tripod grasp is that you take a box of crayons, right? Right now they're on sale everywhere, really cheap. You can get a box of crayons for 25 cents and take the peels off of them and cut them so that they're about, what is that, 2 inches long? Because the only way that a child can hold on to it when it's that little is with the tripod grasp. They can't get their hand around it this way. So you're making it impossible for them, and make sure, because they're going to be frustrated the first time, make sure that you're making it reinforcing. Give them something really cool to color. If they're into SpongeBob, you're going to do something SpongeBob. You can go online, print. There are all kinds of coloring pages. You don't have to go buy a coloring book, but you can put in coloring pages into Google and have it be Disney princesses or SpongeBob or whatever, and you'll see a bunch of downloadable stuff that you can print on your own computer, or you can go to the dollar store and get whatever you need for $1. But make sure that it's all reinforcing to the child. I mentioned yesterday, we went back to school shopping yesterday because I had talked about it on the show and about how we want to rehearse and get our kids ready. And, we went to get the new backpack yesterday, and they had all this Lego stuff. My son's very into Legos. They had Lego folders, and they had Lego notebooks and Lego pencils. And, I'm not a big advocate of spending lots and lots of money, but if there's something that you can spend a little bit of money on that makes it more reinforcing so that your kids enjoy stuff, and if we're talking things that are less than $2, ooh, you're really in my neighborhood here. You know what I mean? It gets very, very exciting. So take the time, make coloring reinforcing first, really heavily reinforce it, and then cut those crayons up. Make it reinforcing for them to do that. Give them something that they really want to color and praise them for it, whether it's a blue ribbon that you give them for coloring it. But if you cut those crayons without the wrapper, wrapper. Take the wrapper off, cut them, and they're small enough, they'll have to do the tripod grasp. You can also buy, although they're much more expensive, they're still less than $10, but they have those pencil grippers that are in the shape, if you look at them from the side, it looks like a triangle with a hole in the middle, and it encourages that tripod grasp too. But I gotta tell you, I've watched a lot of kids work with the pencil thing, and there are lots of parts of it that, you know, don't work for some kids. And I've never seen the short crayon thing not work with all kids. It just forces them. There's nothing else you can do. But coloring has to be reinforcing in order for them to get over that uncomfortable thing of, I don't know what I'm doing now, right? But cut your crayons. It's a fun little thing to do. You can break them or cut them or whatever, depending on if you don't have a pair of good kitchen shears that'll cut them. Make them small. Take the wrappers off. It's really fun. All right, we're going to take a short break and come back with our healthy eating tip of the week. You're not going to want to miss it. Stick with us.
My name is Vince Redman, and I'm one of the regional directors for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. Keeping things positive, I think, is essential across the board. And one of the things is, again, not focusing on the negatives. I think the focus of all discussions need to be on possibly what needs to be done or what needs to change, but it's not a negative thing. It's not that they can't do this or they shouldn't do this or they won't be able to do this. It needs to be, well, he can do this, so let's make it better so he can do this. Or he can do this, but he wants, we need to get him to do this so then he can, he can have more friends or he can talk more. And I really think just the tone, the presentation, the accessibility to making sure that everyone's involved is really, really essential as a fundamental step to keeping this all positive, so that when their child does have some of the aberrant behaviors or some of the aggressive behaviors that sometimes are a part of the autism diagnosis, they'll know what to do. They'll have coping strategies. They'll know what their responsibilities are. They'll know how to make it better. And they'll also know that this is just part of it and there's nothing wrong. This is what we need to do. And when it's done, then you can go back and play with your brother and sister, or you go back to doing whatever. So again, making them a part of it, keeping it very positive in the way we present it. Even some basic early education. There's many, many really good children's books about having siblings that are different, either it be with autism or it be in a wheelchair or it be even step brothers and sisters that might be of a different ethnicity or a different race, that really integrate to embrace the differences between each and to be proud of it, and it's family regardless of any differences between them. So I think some of those early reads would be important as well.
Welcome back to Autism Live. It's that time of the week when we talk about healthy eating. How can we get our kids that are on the autism spectrum to eat a healthy diet? We all know that it's something that we want to do. We all know how important it is to us for our kids to be healthy. There's no judgments here, first of all, I want you to know. I know that it's difficult, and that when you have 85 other things going on, sometimes the food thing, it's a comfort, right? And if our kids are into eating certain things and they will eat those things, for us to take that away and try to put something healthier that they don't want to eat that makes them finicky, there are days when it's too big of a task. I get that. I totally, totally understand that. And yet, I know that it eats at us, right? In our stomach area where we go, I know this is part of being a parent, that I gotta set a good example here and I gotta have them have access to things that are healthy, but you wanna pick your battles, right? Well, one of the things that I wanna advocate is that you don't cold turkey anything with a child with food, right? So if you're sitting there and saying, okay, I admit it, my child has the world's worst diet and I know I gotta change it, and we all get into that mode, right? Where it's like, well, I'm gonna change it and I'm gonna change everything. And it's, new day, new dog, on, right? There's a commercial right now with the mom comes running by and she's got her jogging suit on, and she says to the kids, "Oh, I'm exercising and I've got your breakfast ready." And the little boy looks at the little girl and he goes, "Oh no, you know what this is like. When mom starts to exercise, then our breakfast is going to be something horrible." And of course, they go into the kitchen and she's got some whole grain waffle for them that they're thrilled and excited. Oh, yay, mom's on a health kick. Right? But, it goes to the core of we get on these health kicks and we say, okay, we're going to change everything. And it doesn't make the other people in the house necessarily thrilled or happy, right? I know I just changed something the other day that wasn't a food thing, and my son says to me yesterday, he goes, "I like the way things were before, Mom, before you got on this kick." I said, "Yeah, I know, but things are different now." But reminding myself a little bit of leeway that we don't have these cold, hard transitions. So no cold turkey. If your children have been eating nuggets and French fries, we don't want to take that and go, today there are no nuggets and there are no French fries. As much as we might, when we get in that mode, want to do that, it's probably not going to lead us to success. But what we can do is create circumstances in which our children are more likely to succeed. And I always have to be reminded of this, but we want to set our children up to make the right choice. And we want to give them choices, because we can't be with them all the time. I struggle with this. I want to think that I can be there constantly in my child's head making choices for him, but that's not reality. It is not realistic. And as somebody who used to teach college, oh, can I tell you, the things that I would see, these young people who had parents, some people would show up at college and they had been on their own for years. Maybe they were living with their parents, but they'd been making their own choices, right? And as now a parent, that scares me. But I will say that those kids got to college and they fared better than the kids who had led the very sheltered lives where their parents had constantly made the choices for them. What you see so much of the time on college campus is that those are the kids who come, and now when it's up to them, they have a period of time, maybe a year or two, where they just make bad choices because they've never had the opportunity to make the choice and never found how reinforcing it is when you make the right choice. So I try to remember, but I have to be reminded that I have to give my son the opportunity and set him up for success in making the right choice and then reinforcing the right choice. So we can do this with food. We can start with food, and you can do this with a child who is 2. That if the child loves nuggets and French fries, great. Don't fight City Hall right to begin with. You're still going to give nuggets and French fries, but maybe you're not going to get the supersized French fry, and maybe you're not going to get the 12-piece nugget thing. You're going to start and put one less nugget and a smaller amount of French fries out on a regular basis. If the child is hungry, what you're going to do is give access to other things that are healthy. But you're not starving them. Let's be really clear about this. You're just going to, slowly remove a nugget at a time and 12 French fries at a time, right? And the child is still hungry. The other thing that I think is really important is that when the child is hungry, and we've all been there, right? Where it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon and the child stands there and goes, "I'm hungry, I'm hungry." And how great if our child can actually say that, right? Before my son could say that, it was tantrum time. His blood sugar would drop and he would be hungry, and it didn't matter what you said to him, he'd be on the floor throwing a tantrum. So there are lots of different ways that our kids say, "I'm hungry," right? But those are ideal opportunities when we catch them when they're hungry. And this is assuming that they've had a really good breakfast, they've had a good lunch, they maybe even had a little bit of a healthy snack in the afternoon, right? So we're not setting up a child to be starving in real life. They feel like they're starving, right? But that is when we say, here's what I have for right now before dinner. I think it's ideal to put out that plate of very colorful fruits and vegetables before dinner. That happens before the chicken nuggets and the French fries. Because if you take, I love peppers, and this is a good time of year for peppers. The prices are starting to come down, although it is one of the things that they tell you it's on the dirty dozen list, so you want to get them organic, which is more expensive, but this is the time of year for it, believe me. So you put out a plate of yellow and orange and red and green peppers. It looks like the rainbow, so it's enticing in terms of that. And a child who's truly hungry is going to eat 1 or 2 pieces of pepper. That's great. That's a great place to start. Remember, we always want to reward approximations. Hey, that's wonderful. You ate some pepper. That's a really, don't make too big of a deal about it, right? But make sure that it is reinforcing to them that they did a good job. And you can say, you know what, because you did such a good job of eating peppers, we're going to have nuggets and French fries tonight. You just put less of them out. And if they say, I'm still hungry, well, we have more peppers. And you can negotiate that. Whatever works best for your child, that you can say, I'll tell you what, if you eat 2 more peppers, I might be able to find another chicken nugget somewhere in this house. Or I might be able to find 5 more French fries. And, you negotiate with them. And if you've got a child who is not verbal, does not have functional communication skills, that's tougher because you're going to get some behavior, right? They're going to say, no, and they're going to tantrum, but that's when you find something else to busy yourself with. You put the food there that they can have, and you're not ignoring them, you're ignoring the behavior and ignoring the protest. Kids find lots of ways to protest, whether it's that they say, I don't want that, or they fling it on the floor, right? It's all the same. But we don't have to respond to it. You know how when you get in that mode where you're like, this is what it's going to be and it's not going to be anything else? And your child recognizes that, whether they can speak, whether they have great receptive language. It's amazing how kids get it when we are no. When the no is a no, and we mean no, and it's inflexible, right? I always used to say, even before my son had functional communication skills, like he understood if he went to put his hand on the stove and I said no, that was non-negotiable. It was not going to change. But if he wanted to have another grape and I was like, no, he fully understood, even though he didn't understand the receptive language of no, he understood the body language and the tone enough to know that he could push it. They have a sense, they really do, of what they can push to get what they want, and they will continue to push. So get it 100% clear in your mind what you're going to go for and what you're not with food. But if they've had what you've recognized as an adequate amount of nuggets and French fries, then it's time to put the other thing out there and be non-negotiable about it. Or say, this, I loved the whole, and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, separating the plate into 3 places. You got your protein, you got your carbohydrate, and you've got your vegetable there. And my son knows after, how many years, I'm inflexible about this. He depending on what's where on each corner of the plate, there are some things, some vegetables he'll eat first. There are some proteins that he'll eat first and some carbohydrates that he'll eat first. And whatever the favorite thing is, he'll immediately still ask for more and say, can I have some more of this? And I say, not until you, and he says, I have to finish eating everything on the plate. And I go, yep. And then you can have more. Because if he's eaten the portion of vegetable, then I'm willing to let him have more. By the way, when he gets more of the carbohydrate or more of the protein, he gets more of the vegetable as well. And he knows that. So keeping it even, keeping it in perspective. But eating healthy, we can all do it. It does not have to be overnight, though. I don't think there's a great deal of success in cold turkey. Or if there is success, it's a whole lot of it's like a couple of really miserable days. I don't know that I could do that. If you can, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you, but I can't handle that. So, but offer the healthy things before you give the things that are questionable. If you start with the nuggets and the French fries and then try to move to the vegetables, good luck, right? It's not going to work. Just like if you said to me, I can sit down and eat ice cream for dinner, or you say to me, here's a salad, and I eat the salad, and then you go, would you like some ice cream? You offer me the ice cream first, we're not going to get to the salad. And I love salad, right? Okay, so it is that time of the day when we show you the A word, and this is the wonderful documentary being made at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, following a little boy, Jack Riley. He is now 3 years old, diagnosed with autism at 2, and he is precious beyond his years. He has a new baby sister. He's been going through some different changes, and we'll take a look at where Jack Riley is today. This is the A word.
I know a cute little blue-eyed boy, and his name is Jack.
Jack Riley.
He got a big, warm, blue-eyed soul that makes your heart beat fast.
Hi, Jessica. Jessica's daddy.
That's right. Who's this? Who's this?
Bobby.
And who's that?
Daddy.
Who's that?
Over there? Who's that?
Shannon.
Good. And I totally think he's just aware of a lot of things now. People's names. How's the behavior team going with the inflexibilities?
He's still a big control guy. He still wants it the way he wants it.
In sessions, he was very, he'd get very upset.
And he gets upset fast, like for reasons that didn't used to upset him. He gets upset fast, and then once he's upset, everything upsets him.
Were they really long?
But it was a good half hour, the whole tantrum, which is long for him. Really long.
Yeah.
And he would just get so upset.
Yeah, everyone tells us, it's not unexpected. He's 3 and blah, 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 but
so we get it, we know it.
Still, it's harsh. Yeah, he's 3, but he's our 3-year-old.
Tell me a vehicle.
ECP.
Good job. Tell me another vehicle.
Airplane ECP.
Airplane is a vehicle. Yay. Okay, 2 more. Okay, tell me a food.
I can't eat food.
Pancake is a food.
Yeah.
Tell me another food. Tell me another one.
Super easy food.
Yeah.
Cereal bar is a food. Yeah.
But he's a zebra. Hey, Jack Riley.
Yes.
Good job. Tell me an animal.
White Taurus is an animal.
What's that?
Tell me one more time. What's an animal?
White Taurus is an animal. White Taurus is an animal.
Rhinoceros.
Rhinoceros. Oh, okay, it's an animal. Tell me another animal.
White Taurus is an
I
animal.
know. Tell me another one. Oh, here are your shoes. What animal is that?
Froggy.
Froggy is a what? No, frog is a
Arrow.
good. So tell me another animal.
White Taurus is an animal.
Rhinoceros is an animal, and tell me another one.
More pancake.
No, look at me. No, no, look at me.
White is an animal.
There you go. Thank you. Pancakes are not animals, silly.
There's a clue from it.
More pancake.
Yeah, and I don't mind if he looks around to like get clues, get hints. That's totally fine. Yes, I've been running sessions a little bit more like that lately, just because his behaviors have been really high. Just like if we're jumping on the bed or dancing, I'll stop for a minute and ask him like 3 or 4 questions, and then we'll just keep dancing or whatever we're doing. Let me probe through some stuff real quick.
What are you going to be probing?
Actions. So I just want to see if he already knows it, then I won't even bother introducing it. Give me kissing. Oh, good. What are the kids doing?
He's kissing.
Oh, they're kissing. Can you show me kissing? Oh, good job. Give me cleaning. Okay, good. What's the girl doing?
She's cleaning.
She's cleaning. Good job.
Water.
Okay, one more. Can I have it? One more. Give me crying. What's the baby doing?
She's babying.
What's she doing? What's the baby doing?
She's baby.
She's wah. She's crying.
She's crying.
Oh, okay. Maybe we'll do crying.
He's kissing.
He's kissing. What about this one? What's she doing there?
She's cooking.
Oh, she's cooking. Okay. And what's this one? What's she doing?
She's crying.
Oh, okay. So basically, he knows all of them. All right, cool. All right. What are they doing?
He's studying.
They're what?
There's cooking.
Oh, they're cooking. Good job.
Lots of cooking. Lots of cooking.
Mom is cooking?
Lots of cooking.
Lots of cooking? Oh, okay, cool. All right, all done. Thank you.
Welcome back. So that is the A word. I want to remind you that they have their own YouTube channel, and you should be watching. You should be watching. It would be good for you if you watched, because you get something out of it. First of all, you should go back and watch the early episodes to see how far this little boy has come in the 8 months that he's been getting therapy. It's amazing. And you notice we were talking a little bit earlier about motor skills and about oral motor skills. And Jack Riley is a really good example because he was somebody who was delayed in his language. He was not where he was supposed to be language-wise when he started ABA. Well, now we see that this little boy has a whole bunch of words and he knows what he's saying and he's attempting to make conversation. It's not always connecting because guess what? The oral motor is not there to support. Now, is this horrible? Or is it typical for somebody who is the age of 3? It's pretty typical for somebody who is the age of 3. However, really important, and I know that this team is working with him on those oral motor skills to get his diction caught up. We can't let it go, even though it's pretty typical and pretty age appropriate for total strangers and his own parents and the therapist to not understand everything that he's saying. We don't want to let it go. We want to get on it really quickly because we need for him being able to converse in conversation to be socially reinforcing to him. So they've been giving him reinforcers to get him to speak, and they've faded a lot of that because he just likes to communicate now. But is that going to stick if they don't understand him? They're at the end, and she said, you know, what are they doing? And he said, they are cooking. And she said, yes, good job. And he immediately wasn't part of the lesson, right? I believe that he is saying, what are they cooking? He doesn't quite have the upward inflection at the end, which is prosody, which we'll see probably gets, he's pretty good with most other prosody, but that might be added in later on. But I think he's saying, what are they cooking? And the therapist doesn't understand him. So eventually she says, yes, that's good, just praising him, even though she didn't understand because she doesn't want him to get to the point of frustration. We've all been there with a child where they're trying so hard and you don't know what they're saying. Oh, it's just so frustrating. My son, you know, he's still trying to catch up oral motor from where he was. So he still gets speech at school, and he gets so frustrated when he says something and we don't understand what it is that he's saying. Although my child will invent words that don't exist. He just makes up a word for something and has always done this from the time that he did finally start to speak again. He'll make up a word for something, and once he explains to you what it means, you go, well, that's a really pretty good word for that, but you know what? It's not a real word. You know, I remember when I was in high school and college and I was studying both Spanish and French, and I was considered fluent in Spanish at one time. I am not anymore. But it's because it's one of those things you got to keep up on, right? So I was considered fluent in Spanish, so I went to take a class in French, which was taught by a woman who spoke German. She had lived a couple of years in France, so she knew quite a bit of French, but so somebody would say, how do you say this in French? And she would say to me, how do you say it in Spanish? And I would tell her how you say it in Spanish, and she would figure out how they, you know, she would know what they say in German, and together we would figure out what the French word probably was. Disaster. And I feel like that's sort of what my son is. He's like, well, you know, if there were a word for this, what would the word be? And it's not always accurate, right? But in any case, so important that we reinforce them and don't let them get to the point of frustration where they don't want to speak or give up and say, you don't understand me, so I'm not going to speak. Ugh, right? So important that we're working on those oral motor things. I mentioned last week some of the things that we can do to strengthen the muscles in the face. You know, those minute to win it things where they put the cookie on the forehead and they have to move their mouth around and move their face around so the cookie. That's good oral motor. And there's the reinforcer at the end. You gotta love that, right? But also making the sounds over and over and over again. I think for some kids, if kids find food reinforcing using food, I know people who will take chocolate pudding and smear it all over a baby's face so that they'll stick their tongue out and wipe it off. Good tongue exercises, right? But what about for a kid who doesn't find food reinforcing? And Jack Riley is one of those children that has struggled with food issues. It's been one of the big issues with him is that there are some foods that he literally finds aversive. Go back and watch some of the early episodes. You show this as a baby, show him a banana, and he would burst into tears. He would eat a banana if it was out of the peel and cut up, totally fine, but show him banana and for whatever reason still doesn't like a banana in its skin, but is getting better, and all the different things that they've been doing to systematically desensitize him to that reaction that he is having to food. He's a remarkable child and coming so far. I mean, to get to the point where she says, "What are they doing?" He says, "They're cooking," and hands the thing to her. It says, "What are they cooking?" She didn't understand him, and I might be wrong, but I really think that's what he was saying was, "What are they cooking?" Bless his little heart. But as the oral motor comes together, we're going to see an explosion of language from this little man because he's already so into people where he wasn't before. In the beginning, when they're asking him what people's names are, and we've all been there where people did that with a 1-year-old or a 2-year-old. Well, he's 3, but it's still exciting that he has reached this milestone where he's thrilled to point out the people in the room, say their names, and excited when everybody cheers. We take our milestones at whatever point. Much better that he's doing that at 3 than at 13, right? Catching this little boy up. So stay tuned. We always do 1 episode a week of the A word and talk about it, pick apart, because I just love it. But you don't have to be sticking to our schedule. You can be watching it on your own on their YouTube channel. Check it out. All right, we're going to take a break, come back, and we're going to do our questions of the day. And then at 10:20, we're going to have our special guest, Lisa DeSherlia, who's going to be talking about a petition that she has going that you might want to sign about getting services for adults with autism. Stick with us. We'll be right back. When do you know that your child isn't just a picky eater? When do we know it's time to ask for help?
Absolutely, that's such a great question. And I think the important thing is to think about it in terms of when is it impacting the child's health, their growth, or their development. So clearly, if your child is not growing along his or her own growth curve, so as you recall as a parent, you go to the pediatrician and I say that's the parent star chart. Yeah. They show you how your child is growing, and if your child is growing the way he or she is supposed to, you get the Gold Star Parent Award. But if your child has been growing along a certain percentile, let's say the 25th percentile, and then he or she starts to what we call fall off the growth curve, meaning he may go, for example, from the 25th percentile to the 10th percentile. That's really a time you need to start thinking about professional services. And the key there is when your child begins to fall off the growth curve, it may be that it's not that your child is losing weight. I think that's what's deceptive. Children should always gain weight. They should always grow as predicted. So your child, for example, may be simply maintaining his weight, but at a time when he should be gaining weight. So that will be the first thing, looking at the child's growth chart and talking to your pediatrician about whether your child's growing as he or she should be. The second issue is your child's nutritional content sufficient? And in this case, you really need to have your pediatrician either look at your child's diet, you might have to keep some records, or you may need to go to a nutritionist who will analyze your child's diet and tell you, well, your child's not getting enough iron, or they're not getting enough of certain minerals. Again, that would be a time when you would want to go and get professional help. And then the last piece is if your child's intake is impacting his health in another way. So, for example, the child's cholesterol is elevated, or your child's having other kinds of problems that are a function of inadequate diet. oftentimes selective eaters are selecting diets that are high in fat or high in sugar. And it's interesting because it's not always the case that these children are underweight. As you indicated, they could in fact be overweight.
And it seems like when your child's diagnosed with autism, there's so many things to think about, and food is such an emotional issue to begin with. And so people say, well, you know, he or she's got all these other things, so then I just want to give him the foods, but we can get to a happy child with a healthy diet, yes?
Absolutely. You know, you're absolutely right. How do you pick and choose? What do I do next? We have so many issues. We have language. We have social skills. But you have to remember that your child's diet impacts his or her, not only their growth, but also their brain development. And so it really is important to intervene if your child is not eating an adequate diet, because malnutrition early on, and again, I'm not talking about kids who are, you know, marasmic, they have the big bellies with the skinny legs. I'm talking about kids, again, who are just, for example, eating French fries. If you're not getting adequate nutrition later on, your child may be at risk for later developmental, learning, or behavior problems. And you know, we have enough problems already. We don't want to add to them. Intervening early is, like everything, critical. You know, I know it's very, very difficult, but if you get good professional help, the great thing about these kids is the vast majority of them respond beautifully to treatment. Because they're often selective, they're actually getting hungry, they're motivated to eat, and all we need to do is expose them to new foods, and they'll actually then learn to like a lot of the foods we introduce. So if you get in there with a good professional help, intervene early, you can make a huge difference. I have tons of kids we've seen with autism who are actually the best eaters in their family. And what we like to say is the only way you can tell if a child's been to our program is our kids eat their vegetables.
That's wonderful. And so if somebody's determined that it's time to get help, let's start with how can they get help from your organization?
They can go on our website at the unmc.edu. And we have a page for pediatric feeding disorders, and we actually have an application for the screening process. They can go online and fill that out, and someone will contact them to schedule an appointment. We actually can do some evaluations by telehealth. So for parents who are at a long distance, we have been able to evaluate them without them having to come to our program. And we actually do deliver some services via telehealth. Now, if the problem is very, very severe, we may have to have the child come to us, at least for some period of time, to make a little bit of a difference in the behavior, and then follow the family via telehealth. So, you know, technology has been a big boon to us and to the families because it does sort of bridge that distance, because a lot of there's not a widespread availability of the kinds of programs that are really helpful for these children.
Welcome back. That was Kathy Piazza, a wonderful expert in the field of autism, and especially with a specialty in dealing with food issues. Wonderful, wonderful resource, and we put up the address there where you can contact the organization that she works with. Really an amazing woman. I love the fact that we were able to shoot this video and there was the big plate of fruit in the background. Did you notice that? And what you couldn't see was that on the side, while we were in this room, because we went to Seattle to get these interviews, and it was really, you know, running down the hallway, catching people and saying, can we do an interview here, and finding spaces to them. And on the side there, they were setting up a buffet. And it was very interesting. You know, here we are talking about these food issues and stuff, and what we were just talking about here with our healthy eating tip. And on the buffet that they were setting up, it was so fascinating to me, because it was a huge platter of just the most gorgeous vegetables. It just was this beautiful, beautiful display of vegetables that you'd be really hard-pressed to not think that it was gorgeous, right? And then as you went down the line, they got to, there was like a tray that was petit fours and little mini cheesecakes, and they made you stop by the vegetables first, which I thought was really a great thing. It's what we want to do with our kids, right? But anyway, we want to thank Kathy Piazza for taking the time, and she's somebody that we'll have back on the show, because such a wealth of knowledge on an issue that's really important, I know, to a lot of you. If you can't get your child to eat, makes it hard, right? But they have things that they can do to help you. There's hope. Don't give up hope. Contact who you need to contact so that you can be working on these things with your child. It's the time of day when we talk about your responses, because we're running out of time here, to the question of the day. Our question today was, what are you grateful for? I don't have time to read through all of them because you guys wrote in droves, and I love that, but somebody wrote in and said, my sanity. Well, and then LOL. And that's a great thing, first of all, to be grateful for, and a wonderful thing to have a sense of humor about, because we all, sometimes we're on the outer fringes of it, right? But it's good when we have it. Sanity and peace of mind are good. Another person who says, everything I have. I'm with you right there with that. Another person who says, I'm grateful for my family. We are like the Three Musketeers, all for one and one for all. Love it. Another person who says family, hope, dreams, and making dreams happen. How spectacular. Another person who says, I'm extremely grateful for early intervention. My son has received daily therapy from his early interventionist, play groups with other children with developmental delays, speech therapy, and occupational therapy. My son has progressed leaps and bounds because of all the support he has received, and that is a wonderful, wonderful thing. If you're sitting there and you're going, wow, that must be nice, I want you to know that there's all kinds of help that's there for you, but you're going to have to ask. That we can help you to plug in to things. We really can, but write into us, tell us what you need, where you are in the world, so we can give you some resources so that your child can benefit from these things as well. Another person who says, everything that my daughter has taught me, these are things that we're grateful for. I have changed for the better since she came into my life. Isn't that wonderful? I know for sure I have. I am a better person because of my son. Another person who says, my brother. Lovely. Another person who says, my baby girl. Another person who says, my daughter who has Asperger's, and big exclamation points, my son. And I love this one, any help my son receives, whether it be with speech or learning to ride a bike. Amen to that. I agree. Okay. We are going to take a break here, and we're going to be joined when we come back by Lisa DeSherlia, and she's going to be talking to us about a petition that she would like for you to sign to get services for adults with autism. Stick with us. We'll be back after these messages.
Skills is a revolutionary web-based program that incorporates comprehensive assessment, curriculum design, progress tracking, and treatment evaluation for children with autism all in one place. Developed by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. Our approach is based on over 40 years of research on the principles of learning and their application to improving the lives of children with autism. How does Skills work? Created with speed and simplicity in mind, Skills was modeled on an easy 3-step process. Step 1. Start assessment. Step 1 begins with our intelligent assessment system, which consists of a series of questions. This assessment is essential to identifying your child's level of skills compared to their typical peers across all areas of development. This includes assessing social, motor, language, adaptive, play, cognition, executive functions, and academic skills. Every skill has an assigned age, which indicates when the skill emerges during typical development. This means that each child is automatically presented only with lessons that are relevant to his or her age. Step 2. Choosing activities. It's now easier than ever to build an individualized treatment plan. In Step 2, you are presented with an individualized pool of activities that are directly linked to your student's assessment results. Each activity represents a specific skill that has been indicated by the assessment as needing to be taught. Activities are categorized by curriculum and then by lesson. There are 3 main types of skills: building blocks, fundamental, and expansion skills. Fundamental skills are necessary for successful everyday functioning. Building blocks are prerequisites to a fundamental skill. Expansion skills are non-essential skills, but may provide further enrichment in certain areas. After reviewing the activities available to you, you can quickly add your chosen activities to the treatment plan by simply checking the box and clicking the button. Step 3. Start treatment. Once you have selected and added the activities you want, you are ready to begin teaching. Skills provide you with all the tools necessary to design and manage an effective curriculum plan, such as printable activity guides that are customizable by the teacher, supplemental teaching aids including printable data sheets, teaching guides, visual aids, worksheets, and tracking forms, detailed IEP goals and benchmarks for each activity, brief and visually appealing video tutorials, a variety of treatment progress and clinical timeline charts, and lots more. And since Skills is completely web-based, everything you need is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in one easy-to-access location. Skills users even benefit from unlimited access to a support community, where they can ask questions and share ideas with a skills expert. Skills is always with you.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and we are webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. And our special guest that we're going to be joined by right now is Lisa DeSherlia. And she is a mom who has started a petition that she would like for all of us to sign on change.org. So Lisa, first of all, I want to welcome you to Autism Live. And I need to ask you, I need to be better about this, I need to ask you for your permission for us to broadcast your image and for you to be talking with us now live on the show. Is that okay with you?
Yes, thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. We really appreciate you taking the time. Tell us a little bit about this petition that you would like for all of us to sign.
Okay, this petition is on, as you said, change.org, and it is called 1 million people for better lives for adults with autism. Release funds to each of the 50 states.
And you list on your petition some different. You list on your petition a series of different points of why you want funds released for help and support for adults on the autism spectrum. Correct?
Yes.
What are some of the points on your, we can go over them together if you want, but there's a lot of unemployment in the autism community, right?
Oh, yeah, lots of unemployment, more than any other disability group.
And, you know, different studies have been saying different amounts but numbers easily as high as 70%, correct?
Yeah, even probably over that.
Probably. I heard somebody the other day saying that it was closer to 90% for adults on this.
Scary.
It's very scary. But there are, in terms of services I was saying earlier, there aren't enough services for children on the spectrum, but comparatively what there is for adults is even less.
Yeah, it's terrible.
And so what would you like to happen as a result of this petition? First of all, let's talk about who are you petitioning? You've got 7 different things on your petition. Who are you petitioning? Whose attention do you want with the petition?
Both houses of the U.S. Congress, who make our laws, and the U.S. President. And because I'm in the state of Missouri, my governor and both houses of the Missouri Congress.
And also the President of the United States, correct?
Yeah, that's what I said, President of the U.S.
Okay.
Whoever is the sitting president at the time that I get all those signatures on there.
So you'd like to get 1 million people to sign this petition saying, please release funds so that adults with autism can get more services.
Yes.
Okay. And in order to sign the petition, people, all they have to do is go to change.org, and there are many petitions there that you can sign, but yours, the title of your petition is 1 million, and it's the letters, 1 million people for better lives for adults with autism. Now, how long ago did you start this petition, Lisa?
Oh, in early May. And actually, I got the link shortened so it's a lot easier to share. And it's tiny CC /MRSAHW.
Okay. And people can go to your blog to be linked with it as well, and they can go to on your Facebook page for your blog. And I'm bringing all of that up here. I just am juggling way too many things here. What is your blog is love? Why don't I don't have it here. There it is. On Life, Love, and Truth, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so they can find that on Facebook. If you go to On Life, Love, and Truth, it also has links to the petition site, correct?
Yes, I have a page there at which is it says please sign and share my petition. I think it says something like that.
Yeah, it does.
And then we'll have the link, and we'll have my images and all the basic information about my petition.
Yeah. And one of the things that you're very good about reminding all of us is that every adult with autism was a child at one point, and every child with autism is going to be an adult.
Yes.
This is not just one person's problem. This is everyone's problem. Whether you have a child on the spectrum or you don't, it's all of our issue to be able to give the proper services. So why did you start this petition, Lisa? Why was this such a thing for you? Did something happen and you said, this is what I had enough, I'm going to do something about it?
Well, I was just getting frustrated that, like, for myself, I've been looking for somebody to give me a medical workup to see where I lie on the spectrum.
And we should be clear, you're a parent of a child who is on the spectrum, correct?
Yes. My daughter is diagnosed with pervasive development disorder, not otherwise specified.
Yeah, the PDD-NOS.
It's supposed to be, I think, the highest functioning form of autism, where the main problems are social, but not the repetitive behavior that's found as part of the Asperger's syndrome diagnosis.
Mm-hmm. And how old is your daughter?
She is going to be 13 later this year.
Okay, so she's getting close to that transition time when she's going to move into adulthood.
Yes.
And in terms of services, do you see at this age of 13 that there's less for her?
I fear that might be the case, and especially if these DSM-5 changes go through and she ends up with another diagnosis, social communication disorder, which is supposed to hit those hardest with her diagnosis.
Okay. And so a concern for her, but you mentioned there's also a concern for you as well.
Well, yes, if those changes go through, I fear that I might have an even harder time getting in a medical workup and a correct diagnosis.
But you feel like you may also be somewhere on the spectrum?
Yeah, I believe I am, and others believe it too, who know me personally.
Okay. And so have you been trying to get a diagnosis, Lisa?
Oh, yes. And I have a tentatively scheduled appointment with this Thompson Center for Neurodevelopmental Disabilities and Autism January 3rd.
Okay.
Of next year. I had to wait till then.
Isn't it amazing? I mean, we talk about this from time to time on the show, how long people have to wait to get an appointment. And so that's, a full 6 months away. So
Yes.
I'm sure that's a difficult thing to have to wait that far. Lisa, and tell me if you don't want to answer this, but what kinds of things make you think that you might be on the spectrum yourself?
Well, lifelong challenges with social communication would be number one. It continues to this day, and even online, where I often experience drama from people misunderstanding me and my misunderstanding people, and people taking advantage of me, and numerous being deleted because people misunderstand, even by people in the autism community who
Yeah, well, even, even yesterday, I think, that I was upsetting you because I'm not on Facebook all the time. Sometimes it looks like I'm logged in and I'm not, because it stays logged in my computer here at work. And I don't know, it seemed like last night I got an urgent message that you were leaving me messages, and I felt like maybe you thought that I was ignoring you, and I want you to know that I really wasn't. But I'm not always on my Facebook. And so, but, we had a little bit of a bump there where I think you were concerned that I wasn't getting back to you, and I apologize to that. But I want all of you to know that I'm not. Even though I have friends, all of my friends say, "Well, you're on Facebook all the time," and I go, "No, it just looks like I am because I stay logged in at work." But so I apologize to you if that was uncomfortable for you and you thought that I wasn't getting back to you. But I'm glad that we have this opportunity to talk. I wonder, Lisa, when your child got the diagnosis, was that the first time that you heard about autism, or had people talked to you about autism beforehand?
Well, before then, all I knew about it before then was the classic, more severe autism. I didn't know anything about the autism spectrum until she was diagnosed, and her pediatric neurologist was mentioning the autism spectrum. Before then, I didn't know autism was a spectrum.
Yeah.
I just thought it was the classic and severe, and that people with autism are totally nonverbal and
I had the same misconception until my son was diagnosed. I thought that, unless he was sitting in the corner rocking, that's the only thing that autism looked like. So it's an education. But at what point after your daughter was diagnosed did you start to ask questions about yourself?
Well, I think I was in the kitchen just doing something, and then I heard a conversation where a family member was saying, was repeating what somebody else said, and that the person was speculating, "We believe that you are autistic." And I thought, what? And then I was thinking about it, from all the research I've been doing, I would have to say yes. Well, because I also have the obsessive interest, which got where I was labeled OCD, but back when I was labeled, it was obsessive compulsive neurosis, because back then neurosis was that word was commonly used. That neurosis is in plain English, it's all in your head. You're imagining things. It's not really happening.
Well, I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's an expression in our community that people say from time to time. They say puppies don't have kittens, and because I know there are a lot of us that our children are diagnosed on the spectrum, and when people start to talk about some of the different symptoms, we will recognize that we have and share some of those symptoms in different ways. And one of the things that I think makes it really hard for autism parents is that all the paperwork that has to be done and all the things that have to be done, and there are a lot of us who struggle in different areas with follow through. I know for myself, I found the paperwork of autism just about to be my personal undoing. I'm just not good at that kind of thing and following through and following something around a circle of people and all, just not my forte. But there is this expression of puppies don't have kittens, because sometimes we all, well, I believe that everybody has at least one symptom that's on the autism spectrum, right? I think that everybody falls somewhere. It's a big enough spectrum for all of us. But what are some of the challenges that you face as a parent with a child that you find particularly difficult because of your symptoms?
Well, it seems the main area is her making and keeping friends, which she really struggles with. Hannah, I mean, my daughter really struggles. She doesn't have any close friends per se, except one girl who I think has even worse struggles than she does, who not only is diagnosed with, who not only deals with autism, but I think she has other issues going on, and she's even worse off than my daughter.
Wow. Well, I'm grateful that she has that friend. How are you in terms of making friends? Is it easy for you, Lisa?
No, and it never has been.
Well, I'm glad that we're friends on Facebook. And I'm really glad that you were able to talk to me yesterday and let me know some stuff that was going on with you so that I could appreciate how you needed me to get back to you. I think anytime we can be clear about what we're doing, that makes it easier for everybody. I also think that it's important that we get back to talking about your petition, because if services were there for adults, how much of a difference would it make in your life?
Well, I would probably have a lot more access to getting a medical workup and wouldn't have to go 2 hours out of my way.
Yeah. And you know that your story is not remarkable in that there are a lot of parents and a lot of adults out there that could use some support, right?
Right.
Well,
I know I'm far from alone, unfortunately.
Yes. Yeah, unfortunately, but I'm glad that you're leading the charge, Lisa, and I think it's remarkable that I love your petition on Facebook, and you've got it in several very rainbow colors that are really unique and fabulous. I want to remind everybody that the petition is to get services and you need for adults on the spectrum, and you would like to get 1 million signatures.
Yes, I feel that would be needed for it to be effective and to get attention.
Okay. Well, Lisa, we want to invite everyone that is watching and that continues to watch this clip in the coming months to please go to change.org, sign your petition. It's a very easy thing to do. Let the world know that you stand with adults getting services. And Lisa, I want to wish you really good luck, and I hope that something changes and you're able to get in for an appointment before January of next year.
Thank you.
And we'll stay in touch, and good luck to you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. I also want to remind, bye-bye, Lisa. I want to remind people that her blog is On Life, Love, and Truth. There is a page for it on Facebook, so you can go to On Life, Love, and Truth. Go to that page, and you'll have access to the petition and to Lisa's blog. What a remarkable and courageous and brave woman. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to kind of switch gears to a different place on the spectrum. We're going to be joined by Caroline McGraw, and she is the sibling of a young man with autism. She's a writer and is very passionate about telling people stories on the spectrum. She also writes for the site Autism After 16. So we're really focusing today on what happens in that transition and getting services for older teens and adults. Stick with us. We'll be back after these messages.
I'm Monique Erickson. I'm a senior supervisor here at CARD in the training department.
What are some things we should take into consideration when we're working with school-age children?
I think when you're looking at school-age children, what you need to consider is, one, that they're in school all day. They're school-age. So what that means to us is that they're going to be tired by the time they get home. They're having a full day of hopefully demands being placed on them so that they're learning in that environment. But by the time they're home, you know, they've had a pretty good full day at that point already, so you're looking at catching them at the end of their day, the tail end. So I think that's a really big consideration when you're looking at realistically how much time can you get into that day, what can you expect from them at that hour of the day, and so forth.
Realistically, how long can they work?
When you're looking at how long the school-age kids can work, you just remember their day. They've already had a full day, and so you're probably getting them later in the afternoon, maybe 3 o'clock, maybe 4 o'clock, going to, you know, you're maybe getting a couple hours in, maybe going till 6 or so. So you need to take that into consideration. They've had a long day. How long they can work really depends on that child and engaging, you know, like, you know, when do they start to lose focus? When you know, I've given them breaks and they really can't refocus. That by 5:30 they're done, and it's too difficult, or it's not really effective anymore to move forward later into the evening. So I think that, again, looking at the child as an individual and just gauging how long can they go. It's not going to be, you know, you're not going to be getting 4 hours in after a long school day. That's much too much to expect.
How often should we give a school-age child a break, and how long of a break should it be?
Just by the unfortunate nature of the day, you're running out of time, so there isn't a really big gap between them getting home typically and when you can get that last stretch of that teaching time in. So you want to give them a break. You may have to get started sooner than, you know, maybe they could use a longer break, but there really isn't time to allow for that. A good way to do that is just kind of ease into your session. So maybe start with those lighter lessons that you might have. If you're working on adaptive skills, maybe starting with some of that stuff, maybe having a snack and building into your session so that you go to those more difficult things. But also keeping in mind that you also don't want to say the most difficult thing for the 6 o'clock hour, because that may not be the best time to do that either, because it is such a long day. So I think you have to really know your child, gauge how that day was. Are they really spent from the day that they've had so far? And organize yourself accordingly. And that may vary from day to day. But I do think starting with maybe a snack or easing into that session a little bit with some lighter lessons is a good idea.
How do you keep a school-age child motivated?
I think that there are school-age children that are difficult to motivate or may have different motivators, and there's younger children that are difficult to motivate. So it really is probably a more individualized, looking at that individual person and seeing what is motivating to them and what we need to do. So it might be a little bit different more with older children, but I think that that's probably something we're always looking at when we're doing this type of intervention.
Where can we go to look for ideas of how to motivate them?
When you're looking at motivating our school-age children, I think you want to first, you know, they're an individual, look at what's reinforcing to them. Every child is going to be different, so it's really hard to say this will work for this child, this won't. You have to really look at that child as an individual and assess what they like and may not like. Some good strategies or thoughts, you know, that might help you is maybe looking at their typical peers and what are they doing? What are those school-age children doing? What do they like to talk about and what are they playing with? And try to introduce those to our children. They may take to them right away and they may not, but if you introduce them and kind of guide them in that direction, we might be able to get them on more age-appropriate, you know, types of reinforcers that will be able to mesh better with their peers when we get to the point of having play dates and so forth and working on those social skills.
And what should our expectations be of working with a school-age child?
When you're working with school-age children, some of the things we can expect is, you know, hopefully at that point we have some of the behaviors under control. They're better able to attend and participate in their lessons, but the curriculum starts to change. You know, what we're working on tends to change, and so it may not be going as fast and making these huge leaps and bounds with some of the curriculum areas that we had early on that are more kind of just things that they can memorize and add to their repertoire, like expanding their noun repertoire, their names of objects and so forth. The curriculum starts to get a little more advanced and requires more, so it may take a little bit longer to go through those programs, and that's okay. You should know that because that's what's expected. It's going to take longer to learn some of these skills. We're looking for concept formation versus just memorizing certain information or facts. So I think that that's one thing you can expect. May not go as fast, but that's okay. That's how it is moving through the curriculum. Maybe that they may not have the same amount of energy because they are in school all day and it is the tail end of the day. They are possibly tired, so it may not, you may require more energy on your part or more resourcefulness in coming up with those reinforcers and keeping them motivated and keeping them going. Reading their body language. Do I need to take a break? Do I need to let them get up and move around a little bit to pep them back up so we can keep going? I think those are some things that come to mind when we're looking at what to expect with those kids.
My name is Vince Redman, and I'm one of the regional directors for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. There's lots of things that are different working with teenagers than working with the elementary or early intervention kids. Puberty. I mean, the number one thing you have teenagers where their bodies are changing and their expectations are changing, their interests are changing. They start getting interested in boys and girls. They start getting interested in what their other peers are doing. They start getting interested in, different fads that are going on. And plus, it depends on the level of severity within the disorder. You also have to be very careful that if you are a teenager, that they're not interested in certain things, meaning that they're still not interested in early intervention. They're not interested in like Barney or cartoons and Thomas the Train and those types of things, because they're not age appropriate anymore. Yet they still have that internal desire to be attracted to or to really like it. And I think that is just as important. But again, when we're looking at teenagers, there's a whole array based on the spectrum. But we're also looking at transitional living. They're learning. They have to start learning more self-independent skills. They're learning skills that are going to make them successful in school, at home, and at times when they're by themselves, to self-supervise. Can they make snacks? Can they make meals? Can they know how to turn on and off the TVs? Do they know how to use a telephone? Just on the top of my head, some basic skills that they need to know so that they can be able to be self-sufficient for certain periods of time. So, you have everything as sophisticated as social, boy-girl relationships and what's a fad, what's not a fad, what my friends think versus what my friends don't think, to very easy things to just, can they get to and from school? Can they, microwave some popcorn and can they use a telephone in a case of an emergency? So there's a wider range that when you're looking at teenagers. But to some extent there's similarities to early intervention, but it's a whole new world when we get into transitional skills and independent learning skills that are much different than when they were 5, 6, 7 years old. Now we're looking at 15, 16, 17, and the expectations on them are much different than they were when they were younger. So I think the programming changes, the expectations change, their cognitive ability changes. They should be also learning more advanced abstract learning inferences, deception, sarcasm, belief systems, being able to plan, strategize, problem solve, much more abstract situations than concrete situations that they learned at a very early age. So there's lots that go into when you're working with teenagers. It's a whole new ball game. It's like, to some extent starting over, because there's a new list of expectations, there's a new list of needs, and there's a new list of concerns and deficits that come forth. And we strategize for those differently, we look at those differently and individually, and we set a new plan for there. Motivating teenagers is always a challenge, because for what every one kid likes, another kid likes something else. But we try to motivate them with things that are age appropriate as well. We want to stay away from some of their early motivations, which might have changed. Again, primary, such as food, we want to, we necessarily don't want to do that. Again, early childhood preferences, like certain videos or certain cartoons or certain toys, oftentimes aren't mature enough, or they're not age appropriate anymore. So we have to look at all new things. Many social things that are socially acceptable now are very appealing to our teenagers. iPods, iPhones, video games, computer games, even computer websites such as YouTube and things of that nature are very reinforcing to our kids. Also, privileges. One of the things I think we always have to remember is giving our kids privileges is very reinforcing. Being able to choose what movie they have for movie night, what dinner is going to be made that night, 10 extra minutes on the computer, things of that nature, which we're really reinforcing because it reinforces them to be independent. It reinforces them to want to do that again. And it's done in a way that we would do with any of our teenagers.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and we're joined right now by a special guest, Caroline McGraw, and she is a sibling to a young gentleman on the spectrum, and she is also a writer, someone who loves to tell people's stories, in particular stories of people who are on the spectrum, and she is a writer for a site that I know you're going to be excited to hear about, Autism After 16. So Caroline, first of all, I want to welcome you to the show and ask you if we can have your permission to broadcast your image and to talk to you live on the air.
Oh, thank you, Shannon. And yes, you may definitely have permission.
Okay, great. So welcome to the show. So glad to have you here today. Tell us a little bit about you and your sibling and how autism plays a role in your life.
Sure. Well, my sibling, my younger brother, his name is Willie. He is about 2 years younger than I am, and he's always played a very big role in my life because he's my only sibling. And he was diagnosed with autism when he was around 2 years old. And, you know, ever since then, I have wanted to tell his story and wanted to share his perspective on the world. My first book, the first book I ever wrote, was in the first grade, and it was one of those little, you know, self-published kits that teachers get, and it was called My Brother, and it was about what it was like to be a sibling to someone who thinks differently and acts differently and just perceives the world differently than everyone else. And so that, you know, from that very early start, that has informed my writing and my life to this day.
And you guys continue to have a close relationship, even though you're an adult and living away from home and working in other places, but you continue to have a great close relationship with him, yes?
Yes, and I'm very thankful for that because he lives in New Jersey with our parents, and I currently live in Alabama. So even though there's quite a distance between us, we talk on the phone at least once a week. And I write about him through my weekly column at Autism After 16. And so both of those things just keep me in touch with what's going on with him, his life, his world. And I'm really thankful for that because a couple of years ago, I wouldn't have thought that was possible, that we could be so close, because he was just going through a really difficult time with behavioral problems. And, you know, I'm just thankful that we're able to communicate now.
So how old is he now?
He is 25 years old. He just had his birthday this summer, and he was very excited about it. There was a big countdown, you know, in this many days, I will be 25 years old. Wow. So it's a big deal.
And he's living at home, but you probably can be somebody who has firsthand knowledge of how difficult this transition from, and the services that you get after 16. Tell us a little bit about what you encountered with your brother when he kind of aged out of the typical kinds of interventions that are available widely.
Absolutely, absolutely. It is a really challenging period. And it was made more challenging by the fact that for my brother, even though, you know, for most of his life, he has been, you know, very verbal, very what they used to call high functioning. He's someone who can do his daily routines largely independently. He can, you know, self-administer medication, all that kind of stuff. But when he hit puberty, he just really underwent this period of years and years of just starting to be aggressive and to self-injure, and just we could tell he was in a lot of pain, and we didn't really fully understand why and how to help him through that. So he transitioned out of he went to a, you know, neurotypical middle school, where I went to middle school, and he was starting as a freshman in my high school, but during his freshman year, his behaviors just got to the point where he couldn't be in school any longer. He was expelled. And so he had to live at home with my parents, and it took a long time to find a school that would, successfully be able to support him. And after he graduated from his special needs school at 21, there was another lag period between which they looked for a work program and day support program. And now he does have a county-funded and federal, state-funded too, day support program that he goes to Monday through Friday.
And is he actually employed, or is it services that he's getting that are helping him to deal with his things, or is it a job?
It is a job. It's very menial work. He mainly shreds x-rays. He does like filing, envelope stuffing, working with mailings, that kind of, administrative paperwork, which he's good at. He's very competent, but I think he gets bored sometimes.
I was just going to say, how reinforcing is this for him, or does it feel like menial work to him?
I think it does feel like menial work. On one hand, we really do value that he has a routine. Yeah. He can socialize, outside of the home, because for years he couldn't even do that. But on the other hand, he is someone who, has many talents and skills that could be put to better use than what he's doing now.
What is he good at? What are some of his talents?
Well, he is pretty hilarious. He actually, he named my blog A Wish Come Clear, which is a play on A Wish Come True. He likes to kind of tweak phrases and make them sound different and original. But his two major talents that I just am in awe of, he has a photographic memory. So if he sees, the credits of a movie run by once or twice, he can then go over to the computer and type out the entire list of producers, directors, all that stuff. He's got an incredible memory, and he's a really gifted musician. He was always able to just go over to a piano and kind of start picking out a melody without, formal training. And so he takes piano lessons, and he does occasionally perform on the piano as well.
Wow. Well, that's very exciting. So if you, you're at a place where you're a young person, and you're the only two siblings, correct? The only
Correct.
Two?
Yeah.
So, and I hate to go here, but it's something that we all as parents think about, and I'm sure your parents are thinking about it, that a day is going to come when it's just going to be the two of you. Do you guys have a plan for when that happens?
Well, we have the beginnings of a plan, I think. Okay. We've definitely talked about it as a family, and my parents have told me, that they have, formally designated me as the primary caregiver, should anything happen to them. But that there's also a backup in the form of an aunt and uncle that are particularly close to us and to Willie. So I do have this sense of responsibility, but also the sense that I wouldn't be completely flying solo.
Yeah.
And that my husband also, it was one of those things, before we even got married, I said, I've agreed to this responsibility that, in the future, if there's a need, that I will care for my brother. I'll care for whatever he needs. Would you be on board with that? Mm-hmm. And that's always a scary question to have to ask.
Absolutely. Not something that the average typical person has to consider asking of somebody that they're dating. But obviously he gave the right answer.
He did. And we actually met when we were both full-time caregivers for adults with special needs. So
okay.
He was on board.
So he's one of the last of the good guys. It sounds like.
I think so.
While I've got you here, I've got access to a sibling. We have so many parents who are concerned for their siblings that are neurotypical, for what's going to happen to them, if they're going to feel this responsibility, the time that they don't get to spend with the neurotypical sibling because they're involved in therapies and concerns for the one who's on the spectrum. What could you share for them? What was it like for you?
Ooh, that is a great question. There were times where it was hard, particularly when Willie was going through behavioral challenges, and he he couldn't kind of engage with the rest of our family in the things that were important to us. Like, you know, if I had a track meet or a choir concert or something like that, it was only one parent could ever come because Willie couldn't handle that, and someone had to stay with him.
And were you resentful about that as a kid?
At times. At times I just said, you know, this isn't fair. You guys aren't divorced, so, you know, kind of, I feel like I'm the kid of a divorced family because, you know, there always has to be this split of someone always has to be with Willie.
And you know what? And Caroline, I so appreciate you saying that and being honest, because I think that's, I don't know how somebody wouldn't be resentful, but what I want parents to hear is that you were resentful about it, that you said to your parents, you know, this isn't fair, but look at the wonderful adult you have turned into being, and that you're a compassionate, caring person who any parent would be proud to have you as a daughter. I just want to point out that it didn't make you into some sort of, you know, social mess. You know, you survived it.
I did. And while I never, ever would have chosen to have, you know, had our family go through that, I mean, what was even harder, you know, Willie was physically hurting our parents, and it's so hard to watch someone that you love your sibling, but you love your parents, and it's very weighty on a kid to see that kind of, you know, turmoil in your house and feeling afraid.
Our Skype kind of skipped for a second, but so he was being, no, it's not your fault. It's technology. It is what it is. But so we missed a little something. So he was being violent, physically violent towards your parents?
He was. Okay. He was. And so that kind of put everything else in, you know, small potatoes world because that was just, you know, an incredibly dark time for our family.
So what kind of, but obviously that's not ongoing, or is it?
To some extent. It's not as difficult as it was. And I fully understand that, like, you know, he's really, when he does hurt other people, it's always because he's in a place where he just can't control himself. And he, you know, he's always so remorseful afterward, and he fully appreciates that, like, he doesn't want to be that way.
Right.
So, but yes, to some extent, it's not as bad as it was, but it is ongoing.
And are your parents getting support for that? Are they getting help? Is there like a BCBA who's coming in and looking at that behavior and giving them some tools?
They are getting some help, not only, you know, looking at behavioral interventions and things they can do, but definitely, you know, continuing to do, you know, therapies and different medications, and just, you know, still trying to work with everything they can work with diet, with, you know, every level of intervention that they possibly can.
Okay.
Awesome. And it has gotten a lot better.
Okay.
So.
Good. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Autism After 16, this amazing site that more people should know about. It's quite the resource. I'm on there right now on my computer, and you're one of many writers on this site that run the full gamut. What kinds of things are you writing about on the site?
Oh, well, this is one of my favorite things to talk about because I do feel really fortunate to be a contributing writer at Autism After 16. So I do two things primarily. I write a weekly column, which is called Leaving Normal, and it's about life with Willie, and that's really, you know, allowed me to share the joys and the sorrows of being his sister. And I've really gotten some wonderful messages from readers, just feeling like, you know, like you said, there are so many siblings who can relate to that of, you know, you may just struggle with what your sibling is doing, or, you know, how others perceive them, but at the same time you have this fierce love for them. And so it's difficult to balance sometimes. But the other thing that I do is to write feature articles. And typically what that entails is talking to an organization, be it a nonprofit or a small business, that is doing really great things in the world of employment for adults with autism, or advocacy, or, you know, being the change that they wish to see in the world. So those are really fun to get to do. And I've gotten to talk to, like, Dr. Daryl Treffert, who's the expert on savant syndrome. Gotten to talk to Todd Dresner, who produced the documentary Living Lampposts about his son with autism. So yeah, just really getting to meet some people who are doing awesome stuff.
Well, that's incredible, and that's just one piece. You're just one piece of this puzzle that is autism after 16.
Yes.
You know, I'm just looking across the tabs here. Excuse me. You've got transition, post-secondary, employment, housing, finances, health, community, arts, research, columns, and editorials. And so an amazing, amazing resource for either teenagers or adults or parents of those teenagers and adults on the spectrum, sort of a clearinghouse of what is available after 16.
Yes, yes. And I really admire my editor, Merope Pavlidis. She even went so far as to do a resource guide state by state. So she went through, you know, all 50 states, looking up, you know, the exact links for, okay, here's where you start with Medicaid, here's where you start with vocational rehabilitation, here's where you start with, you know, Social Security, if that's relevant. And it's just, you know, she puts in so much effort and so much work to make it an amazing site, an amazing resource.
Well, it's wonderful. I know that you're somebody who likes to tell people's stories, that's something that's very exciting to you. I don't know if you had an opportunity right before we had you on. We had a mom on, Lisa DeSherlia, and she has started a petition on change.org for, she wants 1 million signatures, people asking for more services for adults with autism. So it's the same sort of area that you're in. But she has started a process to see if she believes that she might qualify for a diagnosis as well. She's the mom of a 13-year-old daughter, but she thinks that she's on the spectrum as well. Very brave woman, might be somebody you want to connect with. It seems like you guys are, she's got an interesting story, and a petition in the same neighborhood that you're in helping adults might be something that we can connect the two of you to be able to talk to each other. But we should say that you do other writing projects besides autism after 16, correct?
I do.
What kinds of things?
Well, there are two major areas, really. The first is that I work as a web copywriter. So I've worked with nonprofits and small businesses that have a special needs support focus. And I just try and, like you said, share their story on their website and make that homepage, make that about page just as amazing as they are. Because so often I just kind of, you know, I would read organizations' websites and think, oh, you know, this sounds okay. But then I would talk to, you know, their founder or someone else. I would interview them and think, this is more than okay. This is phenomenal. Like, you know, and your website should communicate everything that you're doing. And so that's one thing that I do. And the other portion of it is what I've wanted to do since I was in first grade, which is to make books. So I've self-published 2, and I'm working on a proposal for a 3rd.
Okay, and what are the 2 that you've self-published?
The first one is available free to anyone who visits awishcomeclear.com and receives posts via email. And so anybody who's listening can visit awishcomeclear.com and check it out. And it's called Your Creative Care, How to Dig for Treasure in People Without Getting Buried Alive. And it's a guide for caregivers based on, you know, my own experience of living with my brother and working with adults with special needs of, you know, how do you love someone and devote yourself to them without feeling totally overwhelmed on a constant basis.
Great subject. Easy enough to get overwhelmed. Okay, so that they can get that for free by going to your website and signing up for getting updates, posts updates via email. And what is the other one?
And the second one is actually a print book, and it's called Love's Subversive Stance, Ground Yourself and Grow in Relationship. And that tongue twister is kind of taking off where the first book left off and talking about, okay, well, now you're at a point where you feel like, you know, you can get through the day without going crazy. But is it possible to experience, you know, transformation and personal growth while you're still a caregiver? So kind of how can you provide all these supports but still grow and still achieve your own dreams as well?
Wonderful
So that's what the second
subject. Wonderful subject. And what is the third one that you're working on?
Oh, that's top secret. No, sort of.
You can tell me, but you'd have to kill me.
Right.
Well, you don't have to tell us. But you know what I'm struck by is that in first grade you wrote a book called My Brother Willie, and it seems like maybe that's something you need to get around to at some point again.
That's true. That's true. I thought about, I've been doing the weekly columns at Autism After 16 for a year in August. So that's, 52 columns of about 700 words each. So that is pretty much book length. So if I just were to put them all together, say, here you go.
The sibling, you know, because you do it on a regular basis, the sibling story needs to be told.
Oh, yes. Yeah, because, we're so close to it, and it's something that you kind of always carry with you, but you don't always share.
Yeah.
And it needs to be shared.
And with 1 in 88 and 1 in 54 boys at this point, when you stop and consider what's the number of the siblings, it's a huge, huge number of people who constantly, we talk about a lot else, but we don't talk about the siblings. We don't talk about the adults nearly enough, but we really don't talk about the siblings nearly enough. And it does have a toll. I will say, for all of our parents watching though, what's amazing to me is that whenever I have met an adult sibling, they have always been people who are the most compassionate people that I have ever experienced. So I'm sure it was tough. I'm sure it was rough, and I'm sure that there were times when you felt shortchanged, but look at who you turned out to be partially as a result. It's pretty amazing.
Right. Thank you. And I feel like every sibling probably struggles with that fear of will this define me, and will this define me in a negative way? And also that fear of if I achieve certain things, and if I do certain things that maybe my sibling won't ever do, does that distance me from this person? And really moving through that, and getting to a place where you can say, in everything I do, in everything that I am, I'm able to honor that bond and able to, like you said, be a more compassionate person because of the sibling that I get to be close to.
Well, you're a remarkable individual. We appreciate what you're doing, all the different writing projects that you're doing. And so let's say what your website is again.
Sure, thank you. It's awishcomeclear.com. Okay. And I also have CarolineMcGraw.com. That's my professional site for speaking, writing, all that.
And for people who want to go to Autism After 16, it is exactly as it sounds, Autism After and the number 16.com, a wealth of information. Well, Caroline, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. And we get a lot of people who write in looking for resources for adults, and so we're going to be referring them to you and to Autism After 16.
Thank you, Shannon. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And I hope we can have you back on again. And if you've got interesting stuff going on over there, will you let us know so that we can share it here?
Definitely. Will do.
All right. Take care. Thank you, Caroline.
All right. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So Caroline McGraw, what an incredible young woman, writer for Autism After 16, and an incredible sibling. I look forward to being able to download her books, and download one and purchasing the next few that are going to be coming down the road. We're going to take a break, and we're going to be back with a cognition tip, so stick with us.
I'm Adele Nadowski, Director and Co-Creator of Skills. CARD e-learning is an online tool that has been developed by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD e-learning is the training that is delivered to the ABA therapists at CARD to train them on the principles of applied behavior analysis and to equip them with the knowledge they need to essentially deliver the ABA-based techniques during their therapy with the children that they work with. ABA has been proven scientifically to be the most effective intervention for children with autism. At this point, even the Surgeon General has come out with a statement suggesting just that. So we know that this is something that children with autism definitely need if they're going to improve and live the lives that we're hoping that they're going to be able to live. By being able to train people on this one particular method that we know works, and to be able to have all of your staff within your school settings on the same page, it allows you to take more of a multidisciplinary approach, and there's definite consistency going on within the team. It makes sure that every person involved with that child's treatment program, including the speech and language pathologist, the occupational therapist, the teachers, the aides, all of these individuals to be able to be trained so that they can all work together effectively with the child. Parents that are using CARD e-learning can use it either to train themselves, and then after having done that they can implement different techniques with their child in order to teach new skills. But oftentimes parents might also be working either with an ABA provider, with a school, or they may have even hired their own therapist to deliver the intervention techniques. So CARD e-learning can be used either to collaborate with your school. It can also be used to train the therapists that are coming to the home of the parents, or it can also be shared with the ABA provider so that that provider can find out about it and perhaps implement it within their organization and train their staff. You can also do reporting for your organization. So you can actually look and find out which teachers are progressing, what their quiz scores are, and actually we can give you reports as well that will help you to compare the different teachers and their performances. CARD e-learning is really, really simple to use. You can log on to this as long as you have a computer, that's all you need, and an internet connection. And you can work on it any time of the day, anywhere that you're at. When you log on, you realize that right away. First of all, on the top of the page, there's a navigational tutorial. It's a how to use this page button. Simply by watching that video, it'll all kind of unfold in front of you, and it becomes extremely self-explanatory. CARD e-learning has 9 modules, and you can basically go through those at your own pace. You're going to be watching videos that are kind of like a storyboard with narration, but in addition to that, there's many different video clips of therapists actually implementing the techniques that are being described within the storyboard that you can also watch. And then of course you're able to pause, you're able to type notes right directly underneath the video that you're watching. You can save your notes, you can review them, and between each module you do take a quiz, and once you pass that quiz you can go on to the next module. And then after you complete all of them, you have a final exam. And by completing the final exam and passing with a score of 85% or better, you will be given a certificate of completion. Let me show you how easy it is to use CARD e-learning.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and it's time for our cognition tip of the week. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about cognition and what this is and why I get so excited. Because ABA has been around for a really long time, right? And there are a lot of people who do ABA, and I've said this before, different degrees. Not everybody who does ABA is great, and not everyone who does ABA is experienced with autism. You need to know that. There are lots of BCBAs out there who are brilliant BCBAs, but don't have experience with autism. Because remember, ABA works on things that aren't just autism. Okay. So important that we know what quality ABA is, right? But also to realize that not everyone who does ABA believes in this idea of being able to work on what you're thinking. The stuff that they call, I hear the BCBAs refer to it as the stuff on the inside. They are full-fledged, you know, we can change behaviors, but some of them don't get into the area of dealing with the stuff inside the brain, what you're thinking, how you look at things, your perspective for things. Well, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders has long had the opinion and said, look, we can pare these down into other behaviors because that's what they are. The way we think, if we look at it as a behavior and apply the three-term contingency that we were talking about earlier today, that, you know, something happens, we have a behavior, whether it's thinking or something else, and then there's a consequence for it, right? Why not look at it that way? And they've done a lot of research and have worked on these things with thousands of children. Well, my son is one of those children. Can I just tell you how exciting this curriculum, the cognition curriculum that CARD has developed, and the executive functions curriculum, it's cutting edge. You're not going to find it everywhere, but it works. It works. I know this firsthand from being in my home, and I've seen it work with a lot of other children aside from my child. I don't have access to all the children that have been able to, but I, hear wonderful progress from parents, but I have seen it with my own eyes on many occasions. So that's why I get all excited about it. I want you to look, I put up the slide that has all of the different things in the cognition curriculum. By the way, these lessons are the lessons that my son had because he was getting therapy from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, but these exact same lessons are available to you in Skills. This is what I use at home now, the Skills program. It's remarkable. It's phenomenal. This is just 1/8 of the areas that are available in the Skills program, cognition. So take a look. There are lessons about desires, emotions, senses, physical states, thinking, sensory perspective taking, which helps us to build to perspective taking, cause and effect, preferences, knowing, beliefs, deception, detecting sarcasm, and intentions. It's a lot. It's a lot, and I don't want to overwhelm you with all of these different things, but I want to take a minute today to talk about physical states. And why do we teach physical states? Because all of the things in the cognition, when we talk about things in the language curriculum, we talk about receptive and expressive, that we want a child to be able to express themselves, to be able to say something and have it go that direction, but we want them to be able to understand language receptively as well. So when someone says something to them, that they can hear it and understand it as well. Well, if you stop and think about it, in cognition, there's the two sides of the coins as well. It's the child understanding what they're thinking and feeling and processing that, but then ultimately understanding what somebody else is thinking and feeling. Ooh, now we're talking about something that has repercussions that are huge for the child to be self-aware, to understand what's happening with them and how they're thinking, how they're feeling, right? But then to understand what I'm thinking and feeling and perceiving is different from what you're thinking and feeling and perceiving. That's when we get into perspective taking, and that's when we change lives. Because so much, if you look at, even if people are, there are parents who write in and say, well, my child is very high functioning and doing very well in their lives, except, and now there's always that asterisk, right? And a lot of times they'll say, well, socially they're not doing so well. But when you get right down to it, the core of the social issue is that they're not taking other people's perspective. They're not stopping to consider what the other person is going through. They're having thoughts and feelings and emotions, and it feels like everything, right? And they don't know how to process that and realize just because I'm feeling this doesn't mean that you are, or that it's the most important thing in the world to you. Right? And when we can get a child to begin to understand their own desires and then other people's desires and their own emotions and somebody else's emotions and their own senses, what they can sense, and that other people are sensing things too, then they can start to do sensory perspective taking. Well, a part of this self-awareness is understanding what your physical state is. Now, this isn't just children on the autism spectrum or even adults on the autism spectrum. For all of us, if we understand our physical states, how much more productive can we be? And if we can manage our physical states, how much more productive can we be? I had mentioned a couple of months ago that my husband and my child and I went out. We had a full day of running errands, shopping, and doing all this stuff. And we came home and there was a lot of stuff to put away and things to do, and we were all starving and hot and tired, and I was crabby. I was like, and my husband, and he was just, right? He doesn't cry, but he just, right? And at one point, my son, who has had this, since he was 3, people talking about what is your physical state and what's it doing to you and what is it resulting in and what can you do about it, so you're not just a victim of it. He stopped everything and said, look, I'm tired and I'm hungry and I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. I think we should eat something. And I went, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I'm feeling. I'm tired and I'm hungry and I'm overwhelmed. And you're right, we shouldn't start talking about things or crabbing at each other. We should eat something, change our physical states, and then be productive again. And this from my 9-year-old, right? A 9-year-old boy, thank you very much. There are times when understanding what's happening prevents all kinds of anxiety too. If you stop and think about it, have we not all been in that mode where we've said, okay, I'm feeling, anxious, or I'm feeling overwhelmed, or I'm feeling tired, and then somebody puts it in context for us and reminds us, okay, well, you were up really late last night. You're not dying, you're just tired. And then once you can label it, then you can talk about, what can I do to change this state? Do I need to take a nap? Do I need to drink something? Do I need to just take a minute? Do I need to be patient with myself? What do I need to do? When we understand our physical states, then we are no longer at the whim of the rest of the world. I remember when my son was little, and I mentioned this before, that now he stands in the kitchen and he says, I'm hungry, right? But when he was little and he didn't have words, it was just a tantrum because he was having feelings that were uncomfortable, so he would fling himself on the floor. And, it was kind of a good bet, because if he was crying when he was a baby, a bottle or a breast got stuck in his mouth, right? Or food of some kind, and his physical state changed. So when in doubt, I'm going to cry, I will get attention and maybe it will fix it, because I don't even know what's wrong, right? So important. I remember the first time that my son was able to say to me, I'm tired. Woo! A big thing. And I remember it was right around when we were stopping his naps so that we could get him to go to sleep before 3 o'clock in the morning. And he would hit that wall in the afternoon. He's just like his mother, around 3:30, heaven help me. I am at low tide, and I'm lift, right? I'm low. If we were doing this show in the afternoon, it would just be so bad. But he hits that wall, and he wouldn't know what to do with himself, and frequently we would get into challenging behavior. But then, at the age of 4, he was able to say, I'm tired. And I would say, okay, let's take a minute, let's de-stress. Maybe not lay down and take a nap, because we wanted him to go to sleep early. But we would stop doing something that required a great deal of energy and give him some water and cope with being tired. The first time that he was able to say to me, now it's so terrible that, he says, I'm hungry, and I'm like, I know. He's a growing boy. He's always hungry. I swear his legs are hollow. But, at a certain point, when I've heard it 38,000 times in one afternoon, we're trying to make it so that he can fix himself something to eat, because it's never ending, and I know it's just going to get worse. But I remember the first time he was able to say to me, I'm hungry, and how life-changing that was, so that he didn't have to tantrum. He had the functional communication skills and could say, I'm hungry, so that I could feed him. Or the first time he said, I'm hot, or I'm cold. For a lot of years he reversed those. It just was really hard for it to stick. I don't know why for him, but he would sit there and he would say, I'm cold on a really hot day. And I'd go, no, you're hot. Trust me. And he'd go, no, I think I'm cold. And I go, no, you're hot. Because it's just a label. It's just a label. And he needed to find the way to be able to label it. And now he can. He's 9 and he knows what hot is and he knows what cold is. What's funny is he could tell the temperature of water, hot or cold, but when it was his physical state, he would sometimes be confused about that. Very interesting how the brain works. But in any case, not only did he learn to identify what the physical state was, which immediately quiets anxiety, but he also then started to problem solve executive functions. He would problem solve and start to think to himself, okay, so what can I do about it? If I'm hot, is there something I can take off? Is there something I can, put on, like a washcloth, or something that can change my state? If I'm cold, can I put on a jacket? Wrap up in a blanket. His favorite thing is hug somebody warm. Which works, but if I'm hungry, what can I do? That problem-solving thing, which is going to make him a much more level person. It's very interesting to be with him. We went with a bunch of relatives to Disneyland for his birthday this year, and at some point at Disneyland, everybody gets a very pronounced physical state, whether it's tired or crabby, or hungry, or sensory overload. Everybody gets there at some point, right? And it was very interesting to watch my family, because my son would be one of the first people to vocalize it and say, I'm feeling this, I would like this. That he could put it in words and identify what it was that he wanted, whereas the rest of us would always be like 7 steps behind. And I would hear him say, I think I need to sit down for a little while. And I'd go, oh, yes, that's exactly what I need to do. I need to sit down for a little while. He's just that much more self-aware, which is quite the gift. These lessons are available in cognition, in skills, for you to be able to do with your child. It's amazing. We're going to take a break. We are going to come back with the myth of the day. And before the end of the day, I promised this yesterday, somebody wrote in and wanted to know, how do you teach to have somebody look at something and say which one isn't something or it's not that? How do you teach that? And I got all excited and said, oh, that's negation. And I promised that we would do that, so we are going to do that before the end of the show, go into the skills program, into the language area, and talk about negation. So stick with us.
So basically, when we talk about how to teach safety, there are so many levels and areas of safety to teach, but we try to first start off in teaching a simpler level.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, let's say we're trying to teach the child to stay within their yard and not run out of their yard. The first thing that we're probably going to work on is inside, in a more controlled setting, teach them to stop when we say stop. Or come when we ask them to come. And then when they're successful in the structured, non-distracting environment, then we're going to take them outside to the front yard and teach them, okay, when I say stop, you're supposed to stop.
Stop.
Good stopping, Jack. We're also going to make sure that when we initially give them the instruction, we're at a close enough distance that we can help them to stop, so then they don't develop a pattern of running away when we've called them and not stopping. Once they're consistently responding within a close distance, then we're going to gradually increase the distance so that they're responding from a further distance. And then we can also teach some kids that here are your boundaries and this is the area you have to stay in. Or when we go somewhere, you have to always be able to see me. And let's say, or you have to be an arm's length distance away from me. So teaching rules that the child will follow when they go out in public.
And there are so many different areas. We've been talking about escape and elopement and things like that, but then there's also stranger danger. And that becomes a dicey thing, and that I think it's individual to each and every family. I know people who say you're not allowed to talk to strangers, other people who say you're not allowed to talk to strangers unless I'm also talking to them, if I'm talking to them. And then, of course, we have to be careful about teaching them which strangers, because if they're lost, obviously we don't want the kid who's hiding in the bush as the policeman goes by, somebody, how to recognize who in the community. So there are so many different lessons that I can think of that a child has to be taught in order to fully be able to generalize 100% of the time how to behave within a circumstance.
And we go piece by piece then. So for example, with stranger awareness, we could possibly teach it through photographs first and say, is this person a stranger? How do you know that they're a stranger? If they're a stranger, what can you do with them? Like, can you ride home with them? No. Can you accept something from them? No. Well, what if this, giving them many different scenarios, like you were saying, so that They know exceptions of when it is okay and when it's not okay. And then also acting it out as well.
Yeah.
So I say, I'm so-and-so and I'm at the grocery store and I'm offering you a sample of candy, but I work at the store, you know, and mom is with you. So knowing when to make exceptions and when it's okay to do something versus not doing something. And then, of course, sometimes you can also set up a situation. So, for example, you tell your best friend that you're going to the store and that maybe your child's never met that person before, and they approach your child and act out something that you've been practicing. And, you know, fortunately, because you've set it up, you know how your child might react if it actually happens.
So that rehearsing something over and over and over again is really going to be key.
It's very important.
All right.
Yes.
Safety, it's the biggest issue. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. And it's time for the myth of the day. And we were going to talk about something, but because it came up in conversation with one of our guests, I want to talk about challenging behavior and is there an age limit on it? And there is not an age limit on challenging behavior, and I want you to know that. Not only that, there is not an age limit on being able to intervene and change challenging behavior. You know, we've been talking a lot about the teen years and early adulthood and that transition and what a difficult transition it is for kids on the autism spectrum to make. Guess what? It's difficult for everybody. If you've spent any time around preteens and teenagers, and you know it's difficult for everyone, that it's a time when there's hormones, there's body changes, it's hard. Well, put that all together with somebody who can't address what their physical states are, who cannot verbalize what it is they want. I mean, your typical teenager who is typically developing and verbal would have a hard time explaining to you, I am feeling uncomfortable. My body feels uncomfortable and I don't know what it is, right? And I don't know what to do to fix it. That's a typically developing teenager. So imagine how frightening that would be for somebody who's on the autism spectrum, who might have a heightened sensory issue, who might have even more difficulty putting into context the changes that their body is going through, especially for our young men, because we see this with typically developing teenagers all the time too, with the advent of even more testosterone, that there is some anger, there is a need to express oneself that is sometimes, for lack of a better word, masculine and aggressive. So how do we make this a productive time for our kids, and how do we target challenging behavior? Well, understand that the myth is that there's just very little that you can do about it. That's the myth, okay? We can, whether it's somebody who is on the spectrum or not on the spectrum, if we looked through the 3-term contingent and said, what's the antecedent, our word for the day, you know, something is happening. The child, the teenager, the young adult is hitting. Well, what happens right before they hit? We really got to look at that and figure out what is happening in the moment, what is the topography of the behavior, what is it that's happening, and what is the consequence for it. Now, you know, the thing is that when we have young adults and adults on the autism spectrum, I think there is fear and shame that comes. Even when my son was little and he was biting me, and hitting me, can I tell you, I experienced both the fear and the shame and the guilt, because I kept thinking, well, if I was a better parent, this wouldn't be happening. But I was also afraid to say anything to somebody, because I thought, oh my gosh, if we're not able to fix it, does this mean my child is going to be taken away from me? Because at some point he's going to hurt me. And maybe they're not going to take away the 3-year-old, but what are they going to do when he's 15 and he's hitting me or biting me? What will happen then? And I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified and ashamed. And there's something about You know, I'm not somebody who has been in a physically abusive relationship, but I have friends who have been, and there's something about it where you feel like, I'm told, and I certainly felt like this with my child, it was like, well, I'm just going to get it together. I'm going to get it together at least a little bit. I'll fix this over. I'll patch this over somehow. It's my responsibility. I'll patch this over, and then I'll get some help for some other things. And that's a really bad place to be in. I know for me, that was a very bad place to be in. You got to suck it up and ask for help. And eventually, I'll tell you quite honestly, when I did ask for help is when I felt like something bad was going to happen anyway. That I was right at a point where I just, if he'd hit me too many more times, I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know whether I was going to be hurt so bad that I wouldn't be able to take care of him and then he would be taken away from me. I just didn't know. But I was at that very scary place where I was saying, if I don't get some help, something bad is going to happen anyway. And the glorious thing is that then I did ask for the help and I got the help. And that was with a 3-year-old and again with a 4-year-old. I had to ask again because he cycled back into the hitting. But I can tell you that the techniques used with ABA in changing aggressive behavior have been effective with people who are 2 and 62 and everything in between and above 62, right? It's behavior. So don't give up just because a child is older. And I loved to hear that Caroline's family is getting help and support. I hope that you heard that and that you will also ask. Don't be afraid. You have a community of people who understand, and if your child is engaging in challenging behavior, they're not going to stand by and have your child taken away from you. Now, under some circumstances, there are some times when it's advisable for the child to go to a different place for a period of time to work on something, but it's not in a situation where you're told that's what has to happen and you have to agree to it, right? You get some say in it and about where your child goes. But get the help that you need. Don't be afraid and don't be ashamed. I don't know anybody who could do this on their own. And the behavior can be changed, and then your child can come home and be happier and productive, whether they are 2 or 22 or any other age, okay? So there is always help and always hope. Stick with us. We're going to take a break and we're going to come back and talk about negation. Really fascinating.
Mostly the behavior started at night, but it was invading the day, where he would just speak one syllable and babble and pace around.
When she was a year old, she lost speech. She did never seem to request me for anything, even for food. He told me over the phone that I should just put her in an institution. I was devastated. I was an institution, a hospital. Yeah, isn't that nice?
He told me that it was possible or likely that Ruffin would never be employed, that he would never work productively, that he would not know that I loved him, nor would he love me, nor would he be likely to marry.
There's a 50% chance that he won't be able to talk at all, but if he does talk, he will only be able to, you know, make simple desire requests. I want, things like that. And probably by the time he was 10, he'd be in a home.
Doreen told me that he would recover, and Doreen told me that he would go to regular kindergarten.
I really have a very normal kid now, and lots of normal worries, but not extraordinary ones.
My name is Deli Popola, and I'm one of the creators of thehotspot.com. Thehotspot.com is an online support system for families and specialists who are affected by autism across the whole world. Share inspirational stories, find resources in their area. Hope you can join.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We invite you always to ask questions, and yesterday we had a question during the live broadcast, and I began to address it, and I said, you know what, let me do some of my homework and come back tomorrow to show you some of what I'm talking about. But let's go over the question again. The question was, hello, how do you teach this? Example, there are 2 pictures of balls and one is a bed, for an example. And you say to the child, touch all of the balls, or even all the stuff you bounce. She touches the 2 balls, but when the person asks, touch something that's not a ball or something you don't bounce, she can't get it. I think she doesn't understand the not negative part of the lesson. Any tips and help? Thanks a lot. And this was from a mom of 3 with twin girls on the spectrum with autism. So that you're seeing that on your screen if you're watching us on autism-live.com. And I said, oh, because at first I didn't get the question. Then when I got it, I said, oh, we're talking about negation. And that there's a whole set of lessons in the language curriculum of skills that teach negation. And I kind of wanted to go in, and I don't know that I'm going to show this whole thing to you because in order to be able to move around the site, you can see it a little bit now, but it's hard for you guys to see. But I just want to show you that I've gone into a fake child, Skills Live-A-Rooney, you can see her name there. And there are 4 steps to this: choosing the child, starting assessment, choosing an activity, and starting treatment. Well, we start with assessment. And I just want to show you that I'm in the language curriculum, and here are all the different categories where I'm going to answer questions about echoics, objects, following instructions, choices, people, body parts, yes, no, locations, SD rotations, actions, gestures, I have, I see, functions, manding for information, categories, gender, features, what goes with, attributes, opposites, pronouns, describe, plurals, language fluency, negation. There it is. And you see that there are many more, and for this child I've already answered some of the questions. But why do you have to answer the questions? Well, if you don't answer the questions, you may spend time addressing things that your child doesn't need to do. Remember, when we talk about skills and how many different elements to a skill there are, and it may be that your child is that block of Swiss cheese that they got a lot of it, but there's some holes. And how do you know which hole you need to fill in? Well, you answer the questions for the assessment, and I always advocate doing it at a very quiet time when it's just you. Get somebody in the family to babysit, and you go to a coffee shop and sit there and answer questions. Only answer one category at a time if that's what you need to do, so that you don't get to the point where you're overwhelmed. But I'm going to go in here to the negation, and I'm going to start to look at what some of the questions, because you won't believe, oh dear, I went to the wrong site where I'm going to answer no to all of them. I'm going to and I could answer no to all of them right away. I'm not far enough over. That's what my problem is. Okay, so I'm going to go in here and look at what some of the questions are. And there are a lot of questions. And again, I don't have to answer all of them. I can get started. But what I love about this is the questions are pretty succinct, and they go towards a specific skill. That if you say no to something, it's going to give you a lesson to teach this individual skill. If you've not been on skills, by the way, you can do a trial to try skills and see. So worth it. Okay, so the first question is, when asked if he or she wants an item or activity, can your child say, no, I don't? Isn't it interesting that this is what we start with, the child being able to say, no, I don't, to say he or she doesn't want it. And anytime you see a question, you go, oh, I'm not sure what that means, you can view an example. So here it is. Here's your example. You present a banana, which is a non-preferred food, to your child and ask, do you want a banana? And the child says, no, I don't. Or you present blocks and ask, do you want to play blocks? And he or she says, no, I don't. Now, if you have it, I'm going to mark this no, that my child cannot do this. I have a choice between yes, no, and probe. Probe means I'm not sure. I'm going to check. I'm going to go get something that's a non-preferred thing. In the case of, for instance, Jack Riley, right, the little boy in the A word, if they showed him a banana and said to him, Jack Riley, do you want a banana, right? When he was largely nonverbal, he just would have cried. Well, that's a no, right? But, you know, and does this child shake their head no? Some kids do and some kids don't. But we don't have to necessarily have spoken language to be able to to have functional communications to say, no, I don't want it? Does the child understand, though, how to say no to something? This is one of the building blocks getting toward the point where your child can say which one is not a ball. Give me the one that doesn't bounce, because they have to understand it for themselves first. Sometimes you teach lessons from the other side of showing it to them first. But I love this that they're asking about for the child. Can the child turn something down? Does your child discontinue a response when told don't do that? Because some kids don't receptively understand what don't do that means. That's the next question. I'm going to answer no to that. Does your child respond appropriately when told he or she can't have something she wants? I'm going to say no. Now imagine that I'm teaching negation to a child that understands how to shake their head and say, no, I don't want the banana. And a child who, when you say don't do that, they know how to stop and why to stop doing that. But when you say to them, look, there are three things here, give me the one that's not a ball, right? Imagine how much time you would waste in going back to the beginning and teaching the child how to say, no, I don't want that. Not every child needs to go back to that lesson, but some kids will. In order to get to the point where they say, give me the one that's not a ball, they have to understand how to be able to say to somebody, I don't want that. And then they have to understand how when someone says, don't do that, right? Then the next step along the way is going to be you doing something that you know they want you to stop doing, so that then do they have a way of saying to you, don't do that? We got to have this global understanding of don't. Can your child use I can't to indicate that he is unable to carry out a task? All these fine lines. Does your child follow instructions that include the word don't? Can your child use don't to negate information when asked a question? Responses based on observation of current conditions. I need an example there. I do. Your child is looking for his or her favorite red car. His or her sister and brother are playing with cars. You think they have the red car, so you ask, do Connor and Kendi have your red car? And your child looks and says, no, they don't. Right? A very interesting distinction to be able to make. While observing two or more people attempting to engage in an action, one or more of who is unsuccessful, can your child identify the person who can't? So we start with an action. Who isn't jumping? Right? Who's not jumping? Can they figure that out? Start with that kind of thing. Can your child use can't to say that someone can't do something when asked? Can your child use can't to say that someone can't do something that has to do with general knowledge? So if they say, can dad fly? No, dad can't fly because dad does not have wings. Can your child follow a direction that requires him or her to identify an object that is not representative of a given description? And again, I want to go to the example because I go, I don't know what it means. You need your child to hand you a kitchen towel. In the presence of wet and dry kitchen towels, you say, can you give me the one that's not wet? Okay, so now we're getting into the neighborhood of being able to. Now, if your child can't do these, guess what? There's a lesson that goes with each one of these different things. You may, what's great is that you answer the questions here on the assessment, then you hit the continue button, and it takes you to step 3, and it says, here's a pool of lessons that are recommended for this child because they don't have these skills. And then you can pick and choose where you want to start. But then you go to the 4th step, which is you open the lesson and it gives you the teaching points. Oh, you guys. But this is all under the heading of negation. And if a child doesn't understand something that's not or don't, and there's a whole, oh my gosh, it's just, there are a lot of, let's see how many questions there are in negation. So there's 32 here. But there's probably 50 or 60 lessons in negation that I was looking at last night because it builds, but it starts with not and don't and goes up from there. Really remarkable. I'm going to hit enter. I didn't answer all of these questions. Also want to point out that sometimes you answer a question and based on that, it's a SMART assessment. So you might answer a question, you might answer question 15, and if your child can't do 15, then they automatically can't do 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20, and it will automatically answer those no for you. So I'm going to go back up here, and there is a way that I can mark all of them no. Oh, it's one back to do that. Sorry. So I'm just going to answer the ones that I've answered, and I'm going to go in here. I'm going to hit submit and continue. I could submit and go back to the assessment and keep answering questions. Okay. It automatically moved me over to step 3, which is choosing activities. So automatically here in my language curriculum, it's given me lessons about teaching don't. Remember we did SD yesterday? SD is the thing you say or do to get the child to engage in the behavior that you want them to engage in so you can give them the reward. So look here, it says the SD. The therapist presents a non-preferred item or activity and the vocal stimulus. Do you want a banana? And what we're looking for is the response, no, I don't. Now with DTT, we're going to separate, probably going to start with DTT with this, although we can do it in natural environment training as well. We're going to separate this moment out, but in DTT, we're going to separate it out of everything else. We're going to set up a circumstance. We're going to have already gotten non-preferred activities, and we're going to, or items, and say, do you want the banana? And then we're going to prompt and get the child to shake their head no, or to say no, or to sign no, whatever it is that we're counting as the response that we want so that they can tell us no. And if we're not using, if we're not asking them to verbally say it with spoken speech, then, you know, when they do this, we can say yes, well, not yes, because that would be confusing. We'd say, no, you don't. Okay, good job. You don't want the banana. We'll language it for them. We might hold up text too to say, you know, I don't want the banana, but there are ways to do this. But if the child is already speaking, we want them to say, no, I don't, or no, thank you, right? But we want that no in there. You can see the lessons progress from there. And can't is the next set of lessons from what we answered. There's probably 50 or 60 lessons. It's amazing, but you get to the point where you can teach the child which one is not the ball. Again, as we were saying yesterday, you always want to be doing errorless learning and doing prompting in the beginning because you want to get to the reinforcement. So you got the 2 balls and you've got the bed there, and you say, give me the one that's not a ball. And if you've done all the prerequisites and you're teaching this for the first time and the child goes to reach for a ball, you grab their hand and stop them from getting to the ball. You help them to pick up the picture of the bed and put it in your hand and go, yes, good job. That's the one that's not a ball. It's not a ball, it's a bed. And then go back and do it again. And eventually the child picks up the one about, yay! It's a bed. Yes, it's not a ball. These are balls. This is not a ball. All right, we're out of time. But as this show ends, the conversation continues. I hope you check out Skills. It's wonderful. But this conversation continues online. You can be emailing us. You can phone us. You can call us. We've got some really exciting things going on tomorrow in the morning at first thing at 9:30. We're going to be joined by Mark. And of course, name just completely escaped my brain. Sorkin, thank you, who is going to be with us from Autism Speaks, and that'll be at 9:30 tomorrow morning. So if you have questions for him, we're going to be talking about some very exciting things. He blogs for Autism Speaks and has some really impressive things about education and inclusion that we want to talk about with him, and about some things going on in Autism Speaks. If you have some questions that you would like to ask, you can be writing in, calling in, whatever, in any of these different ways here. Then we're going to have Evelyn Gould with us at 10 o'clock, and then in the 11 o'clock hour, Nancy Allspot Jackson is going to join me. We're going to be talking about a wrap-up for that film inclusion program when we had Joey Travolta on and how the program went, show you a short video about that. And also, we have an interview that we were able to do last week with Gabriella Tesora. She is one of the morning anchors for Univision and the mom of a son with autism spectrum disorder, and we had a wonderful opportunity to sit down and talk with her. A very important message message for all of our friends out there who are Spanish speaking. So Gabriela will be with us. We've already filmed the interview, but we will show that to you tomorrow. So starting out with Autism Speaks, then Evelyn Gould, BCBA, and then Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. An exciting show. We'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.